not in a hospital, which is
Not yet. Clarify, hospital for baby, not for other things.
exactly. Let's define that. How are you feeling? You doing okay?
Oh, good. I'm getting close. 2 weeks left to be vaccinated.
I did.
Hey, Nick.
Mr. Chair, if Rhonda's ready, I think everybody's here and we have our quorum.
Perfect, Madam Clerk, thank you. We all ready to go, team? We got 1 minute left, but I think we're ready to go. Give her a couple seconds. Madam Clerk, are we good? We ready?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Perfect. So at this time, I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Meridian Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for the date of August 20th. And let's start with roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Holland?
Here?
Commissioner Grove?
Here.
Commissioner McCarville?
Here.
Commissioner Seal?
Here.
Commissioner Fitzgerald?
Here.
Absent is Commissioner Casanelli.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. The first item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. We have 2 items at the beginning of the that will open only for continuance, and those are Horse Meadow subdivision and Prescott Ridge subdivision. We'll open those in order to continue them to a date certain. With that notification, can I get into can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you all. I have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda tonight. The approval of minutes for the August 6, 2020 P&Z Commission regular meeting, and then the findings and facts, conclusions of law, Rock and Armor Fitness. Are there anything that need to be taken out of the consent agenda, or are we good to go? I think we're good to go. Okay, can I get a motion? Commissioner McCarville.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I move we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Second.
Yep, I have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, thank you all for your being here in virtual space and in real space, and appreciate you guys allowing us to be in that same situation. Commissioner Steele, thank you for being the person on the dais tonight. We appreciate doing that again. As we start tonight's hearing process, let me kind of explain how we're going to do things tonight. We'll open each item individually and allow the staff to report on how each item or application meets our comprehensive plan and uniform development code with their recommendations. After the staff's made their presentation, the applicant will come forward to present their case for the approval of the application, and then we can respond to any, and they will respond to any staff comments. The applicant will have about 15 minutes to do so. After the applicant has finished, we will open the floor of public testimony. There's an opportunity to sign up if you're in person in the back. There's an iPad, you can sign up back there. And then if you're online via Zoom, the clerk will keep a list of folks to bring in to provide their testimony. And we'll kind of run the meeting with the clerk giving us guidance on who's next to speak. If there is any individual that is in the audience or online that is there to speak on behalf of an HOA, we'll give you 10 minutes to speak. We're hoping that the people that you're speaking on behalf will not also follow through with additional comments that are similar to yours. So if you're representing an HOA, we'll give you that additional time to represent your constituency, but we want to make sure that we don't hear multiple comments about the same thing. So we know there's a couple items on the agenda tonight that might have some definite public testimony. We really appreciate it for time wise, and we want to make sure you get your thoughts and points across, but we want to keep that. If we heard a bunch of things about a certain issue, we would like to focus on issues that the commission hasn't really heard of or heard about. So if there is an HOA person, they will have 10 minutes to speak. The public in general will have 3 minutes to speak. And after all testimony has been heard, the applicant will be given an opportunity, a 10-minute opportunity to come back up and close their remarks and respond to anything that was provided by the public testimony. At that time, we will close the public hearing. The commissioners will have a chance to deliberate and hopefully be able to make a recommendation to City Council or a decision on the application. As we move forward, I think kind of gone through the process. If you're on Zoom, we would please make sure you mute yourself. The clerk will help you kind of get squared away, but if you have a question, raise your hand on Zoom. There's only one opportunity to testify, so use your 3 minutes wisely. We've had issues where people have wanted to testify again after their first time, and that we only allow that one opportunity. So please make sure you get your points across in that first iteration. So as we move down in our to start our public hearing process tonight, we'll open the public hearing on Horse Meadows subdivision. And I know that are they in the building or online, Madam Clerk, to talk about why they're requesting a continuance, or maybe the staff can provide us that?
Mr. Chair, Penelope is in-house.
Okay.
Penelope, if you want to approach the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Penelope Constantakis, Post Office Box 405, Boise, Idaho 83701. We're asking continuance tonight because we had some fine-tuning that we needed to do to the plat, and I think we've resolved all the ACHD and staff issues. It's a somewhat complicated site, and we needed a little extra time. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Penelope. Is there any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Thanks, Penelope. We appreciate it. With that, we have a date for the continuance on September 17th of 2020. There's not any other comments. Can I get a motion to continue that public hearing?
Mr.
So
Chair,
Commissioner McCarville.
are we sure there's room on September 17th? I thought it was full last time we tried to start putting stuff on that meeting.
Bill
Mr.
or
Chair, Commissioner McCarville. Currently, we have 2 hearings on that date. One is
Okay.
for a rezone for Ada County Corner, and the other one is annexation and zoning for Compass Point.
Okay, so 2 is okay.
looks
Perfect.
like both of these are headed there. So
Yep. Okay.
anyone want to follow up with a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Seal.
I move to continue file H 2020-0060 Horse Meadows to the date of September 17th, 2020, to give the applicant more time to finalize the application.
second.
I have a motion and a second to continue application 2020-0060 Horse Meadows subdivision. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is the public hearing for Prescott Ridge, file number H 2020-0047. Madam Clerk, is the applicant in-house today to provide input?
Mr. Chair, I don't believe that the applicant is here, but I do have a raised hand. One moment, please.
There, thank you.
Stephanie, one moment. Joining us in just a second.
Stephanie, if you want to unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep, go right ahead, Stephanie.
Hi there. Good evening, commissioners. We are requesting a continuance because we determined that we'd like to add a couple of plats to the multifamily portion of the site. In discussing that with staff, we it was determined that we'd have to notice the site to be able to do that. We discussed with her, with Sonia about that, and also thought that it'd be good to give staff and other agencies enough time to be able to review the changes that we'd made for, per ACHD staff comments. And that was essentially the reason that we were requesting a continuance, I believe, to September 17th as well.
Perfect. Any questions for the applicant? Thanks, Stephanie. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? If not, I can get a motion. It'll be wonderful.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Grove.
I move to continue file number, or is it? I just lost it. Sorry. H 2020-0047 to the hearing date of September 17th.
Did I get a second there?
Excited.
I have a motion and a second to continue the file number H 2020-0047 Prescott Ridge subdivision to the hearing date of September 17th, 2020. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda, we have the public hearing for Loose Screw Brewery, H 2020-0081, and let's kick it off with the staff report. Alan, are you available?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Alan Tiefenbach, Associate Planner at the City of Meridian. Good evening. This is a conditional use for a drinking establishment. The site is approximately 2 acres in size. It's zoned neighborhood business district, and it's located at 1511 West McMillan, which is basically the southeast quadrant of West McMillan and North Linden Drive. The future land use map recommends that from mixed use neighborhood. As I said, it's already zoned neighborhood business district, and you can see here on the aerial where it's located. Real quickly, so this property was part of a larger annexation in 2013. At that time, part of that annexation included what is now known as the Sawtooth Village Retail Center. This is about a 2-acre piece of land. It's right on the corner. It's comprised of 2 buildings of 10,000 square feet each. The property is presently in the process of building out. If you look at the photographs here on the top left, that is looking from West McMillan. That is the Sawtooth Retail Center. So building A is on the right, building B is on the left, and in the middle there, between those 2 towers, what you see here, this is a plaza, and this is going to be important here in a minute. On the bottom here, this is a picture from the back at the south, and this is looking into a 4-plex complex. There is a path that runs through, and there's a path that connects here. You see the chain link there because, as I said, these buildings are presently in the process of building out, so there's construction fencing all around it. This is an application for a conditional use permit. It's to allow a 2,200 square foot brewery. This is defined in our UDC as minor food beverage products processing. This will include outdoor seating and potentially live music. The applicant will be leasing a space within this building here, again about 2,200 square feet. Because there is residential within 300 feet of this property, it's required to do a conditional use. As I said, outdoor music is a possibility. This development has 58 parking spaces that have been approved as part of the certificate of zoning compliance. 40 parking spaces would have been required. So it's 1 parking space per 500 with 2 10,000 square foot buildings. That would be 40 parking spaces. Again, 58 are provided. It's also, I think, important to mention that different uses share different peak parking demands. Some of these uses are going to be office and like your nail salon type uses, which are between 8 and 5. Then there's other uses that are the more after hours uses, which would be the restaurant and this brewery. It's staff's opinion that 58 parking spaces, given these different types of competing uses, would definitely be sufficient. The only real concern that staff had with this proposal was, first of all, the hours of operation. There's certain hours that are required, that are allowed for drinking establishments. Those are between 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. Staff recommends as a conditional use that it be limited to those hours. The other concern we have, and I'll go to the site plan, this is the landscape plan that was approved as part of the certificate of zoning compliance. This is building A. The brewery will be proposed in this area where I marked it here. There is this outdoor plaza here, and the applicant wants to share seating. There's a restaurant over in this building that's coming in, and then the Loose Screw Brewery would be over here. And these two different restaurants have already worked with the owners of this development to work out an arrangement where they can both have outdoor seating. There would be approximately 5 tables, is what the Loose Screw has said. Our only concern with this would be the residential that's directly to the south. We wouldn't want this, the activities that are associated with this brewery to start sort of drifting out into other areas, either in towards the back or towards the front. So our recommendation is that any outdoor activities associated with this brewery would be limited to this plaza and no more than 1,500 square feet, and that's the size of this plaza. Other than that, staff has no other concerns, and we recommend approval of this project. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to take those now.
Thanks, Alan. We appreciate it. Are there any questions of the staff on this application? Hearing none, would the applicant like to be recognized to touch base on this project? Are they in person or online?
Mr. Chair, the applicant is in person and approaching the podium.
Awesome. Thanks, Madam Clerk. Good evening. Please state your name and your address for the record, and the floor is yours, ma'am.
Good evening. I am Mary Murphy, 3030 Boulder Creek Place, Meridian, Idaho, 83646. And I am the applicant with Grand Peak Development. I am representing TS Development, the owner, and the tenant that would be Loose Screw Beer Co. We just wanted to say that we agree with staff and their recommendations. And other than that, if you have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Are there any questions for the applicant on this project?
Ryan, you're muted, Ryan.
Ryan, sorry about that. Go ahead and repeat what you just said. I had you turned down.
Okay, thanks. Are there any questions for the applicant on this project? No. Thank you, ma'am, very much for being here. And if there's any public testimony, we'll let you come up and close and respond to anything that's said. So,
Great, thank you.
Is there public testimony of anyone who would like to testify in this application that signed up, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Chair, we had one person sign in, but not wishing to testify.
Okay. If there's anyone in the audience or online that would like to testify on this application, please raise your hand. We'll give a few seconds. Raise your hand via Zoom or raise your hand in the audience, either one. And Commissioner Seal is going to always be in my eyes. Okay. We appreciate it. Mrs. Murphy, do you have any other comments to make, ma'am? She's probably saying no.
Mr. Chair, she indicated no.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. With that, can I get a motion to close the public hearing unless someone has questions for the staff?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Grove, or Commissioner Seal.
Move we close the public hearing on H2020-0081.
Second.
The motion and a second to close the public hearing on H2020-0081 Loose Screw Brewery. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Does anyone want to start off? I think this one's pretty easy for me, but I need more restaurants in my neighborhood, so I'll just, I'm looking forward to breweries nearby. So anyone want to shoot? Go ahead. Commissioner Holland, you unmuted yourself. Do you want to comment?
Sure.
Go right ahead.
I was just gonna say, I ditto that. I think it looks like a nice concept to fit in there. I like that there'll be alternating uses, so I don't see any concerns.
Mr. Chair.
Anyone else? Commissioner McCarville.
Yeah, I agree. I think staff addressed, any issues, and I think they've been addressed, just to keep the usage there in that little patio and not extend out. So I think it'll be a nice fit.
Agreed. I think that the hours of operation makes sense. I'm glad there's going to be, they're interweaving into that neighborhood behind them too. So I think it's great.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Seal.
I echo what has already been said, and I'll go ahead and throw a motion out there.
Sounds great.
After considering all applicant and public testimony, I move to, this is a CUP, correct?
Yeah.
So we are approving. So after considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to approve the City Council file number H2020-0081 as presented in the staff report of the hearing date of August 20th, 2020.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the conditional use permit for Loose Screw Brewery H2020-0081. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Good luck to you all.
Aye.
I look forward to having a beer at the establishment down the road. Moving on to the next item on our agenda is the public hearing for Victory Apartments, file number H2020-0065. And we'll start with the staff report. Sonia, are you on?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. The next applications before you are a request for a comprehensive plan map amendment and annexation and zoning. This site consists of 18.45 acres of land. It's zoned RUT in Ada County and is located at the southwest corner of West Victory Road and South Meridian Road and State Highway 69. Adjacent land uses and zoning to the north is Victory Road and single-family residential and office uses zoned R4 and LO. To the south are single-family residential uses zoned R8. To the west is rural residential zoned RUT in Ada County that's designated medium-density residential on the future land use map. And to the east is South Meridian Road, State Highway 69, and multifamily residential apartments zoned R15 and single-family residential homes zoned R8. The comprehensive plan future land use map designation for this property is medium-density residential, which calls for 3 to 8 dwelling units per acre. The applicant is requesting an amendment to the future land use map contained in the comprehensive plan to change the land use designation on 18.45 acres of land from medium density residential to medium high density residential and annexation with an R15 zoning district. The subject property, along with the 4-acre out parcel to the west, are enclaves surrounded by city annexed and developed land. Annexation and development of this property will reduce the enclave situation, leaving only one parcel in the county, which will provide for more efficient delivery of city services in this area. The existing medium-density residential designation, as I said before, allows for dwelling units at gross densities of 3 to 8 dwelling units per acre. The proposed medium-high density designation allows for a mix of dwelling types, including townhomes, condominiums, and apartments at gross densities of 8 to 12 units per acre. Medium-high density residential designated areas are relatively compact within the context of larger neighborhoods and are typically located around or near mixed-use commercial or employment areas to provide convenient access to services and jobs for residents. Development should incorporate connectivity with adjacent uses and area pathways, attractive landscaping, and a project identity. The applicant's request for approval of an amendment to the future land use map to change the land use designation for this property to medium-high density residential for an increase in density for development on this site is based on recent market studies included in the application that corroborate the demand for housing in Meridian is high, and a range and diversity of housing types is needed. And the map you're looking at there is the existing future land use map and the proposed change to the future land use map. A conceptual development plan was submitted with the annexation request as shown that depicts a total of 170 multifamily residential units consisting of a mix of twoplex and fourplex structures at a gross density of 10 units per acre, consistent with and at the mid-range of the desired density in the proposed medium-high density designation. Duplex structures are proposed along the southern and western boundaries of the site as a transition to the existing single-family residential properties from the proposed fourplexes. The proposed development is located in close proximity to a mix of office and commercial uses. Healthcare services and other office uses exist to the north across Victory Road and along South Meridian Road. And Legacy Feed and Fuel with a convenience store and gas station exists kitty-corner to the side across Meridian Road. Other commercial uses are currently in the development process in this area that are anticipated to consist of retail, healthcare, office, and flex space for small commercial businesses. And that is around the Legacy Feed and Fuel site. Access is proposed via a public street from Victory Road, an existing two-lane arterial street, which is proposed to stub to the west for future extension. And emergency access only is proposed via South Meridian Road. No improvements are planned in the capital improvements plan or the 5-year work plan for this section of Victory. ACHD is not requiring Victory to be widened adjacent to this site because there is insufficient area to do so with the proximity of the Reidenbach Canal to Victory Road, which runs along the northern boundary of the site. The traffic level of service for this road is better than E, which is an acceptable level of service for a 2-lane roadway per ACHD's report. Qualified open space and site amenities are required to be provided with development in accord with UDC standards. A minimum of 10% open space and 1 amenity are required. The concept plan depicts a central common area with a clubhouse, swimming pool, and tot lot. A dog park is proposed at the northeast corner of the site across the Reidenbach Canal with a pedestrian bridge for access over the canal. Off-street parking is depicted on the plan in excess of UDC standards with 50 extra spaces. The UDC requires a 25-foot wide street buffer and detached sidewalk to be provided along arterial streets, such as Victory Road. However, because there is not sufficient area between the Reidenbach Canal and Victory for a sidewalk, ACHD is requiring the sidewalk to be constructed on the south side of the canal. If the easement for the canal entirely encompasses the buffer area, a minimum 5-foot wide area outside of the easement is required for landscaping. A minimum 35-foot wide street buffer with a detached 10-foot wide multi-use pathway is required along South Meridian Road and State Highway 69, which is designated as an entryway corridor. Noise abatement is required for residential uses along the highway in accord with UDC standards, which requires a berm or berm and wall combination parallel to the highway, the top of which is required to be a minimum of 10 feet higher than the elevation at the center line of the state highway. Conceptual building elevations were submitted for the fourplex structures that are pinwheel design similar to those constructed in the Little Creek development off Locust Grove behind D&B Supply, with the front door of each unit on a different side of the structure. The twoplex structures are similar to the fourplexes in design, but the front doors of each unit will be on the same side on the front of the structure. Building materials consist of a mix of vertical and horizontal siding with stone or brick veneer accents. All structures are required to comply with the design standards listed in the Architectural Standards Manual to ensure a high quality of design. Multifamily residential developments require conditional use permit approval in the R15 district and compliance with the specific use standards for such listed in the UDC. If subject applications are approved, detailed review of the development for consistency with UDC standards will take place with the conditional use permit application. West Ada School District submitted comments on this application that show enrollment for the 2020-2021 school year below capacity in this area for all grades, although Victory Middle is only slightly below capacity, which will be exceeded with any future development in this area. Written testimony has been submitted on this application as follows. There have been many letters of testimony received on this project that are included in the public record, the majority of which are against the applicant's proposal for reasons pertaining to density. They feel it's too high, type of development proposed, the apartments, too much existing traffic and congestion in this area and on Victory Road, and desire for Victory to be widened before any more development is approved in this area, and concern pertaining to ability of area schools to handle more students. The applicant did submit a response to the staff report. They are in agreement with the staff recommendation. The staff is recommending approval of the amendment to the future land use map in accord with the comprehensive plan provisions that encourage higher density residential uses along major transportation corridors near commercial mixed use and employment areas with pedestrian connectivity to these uses. And approval of the annexation and proposed development plan with the requirement of a development agreement, as it provides a transition in uses and density to existing single-family residential properties, will contribute to a range of residential land use designations and diversity in housing types and densities in this area, and will provide convenient pedestrian access to nearby services and jobs for area residents with construction of a sidewalk along Victory and a multi-use pathway along Meridian Road. Staff will stand for any questions the commission might have.
I appreciate it. Are there questions for the staff?
Ryan.
Thank you. I can mute myself so I'm not loud. Are there any commission questions for Sonia?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Grove.
Sonia, I had a question on the site map. I didn't see the pathway depicted on the south side of the canal. Is that articulated in any of their plans, or is that something that will come later?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Grove, Commissioners, it is not depicted on the plan, but it will be a requirement of development by ACHD and the city.
Commissioner Grove, did you have follow-up? I think we can probably ask the applicant where it's going to go. But
I hear you, right.
Am I being muted?
Sorry, Bean. Sorry, Ryan. We're trying something new tonight, and I have to turn you down every time somebody else talks in chambers. So I apologize for going back and forth on you.
You're fine. No worries. Commissioner Grove, did you have follow-up? Because I think we can talk to the applicant about where that's going to go, because I had the same question. Additional questions for staff?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Seal.
just on the future land use map, with the modifications that were done recently to it, did that change on it, or is it the same as it used to be? Or has it changed in the recent past?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, no, it did not change with the last amendment.
Thank you.
Additional questions for Sonia? Okay, hearing none at this time. Would the applicant like to come forward or raise their hand if they're in attendance? Madam Clerk, can you bring Thad over?
One moment. Eric P., if you're part of this as well, will you please raise your hand?
Oh, actually, I'm Wendy Sharif with JB Engineers.
Is Eric with you as well?
He is calling in through Zoom. Okay.
Wendy, that's...
Hi, again, Wendy Sharif with JB Engineers, and Eric Hilliard, I spoke with the clerk's office. He's on a Zoom call, and he'll speak if needed, if we have any questions for him.
Okay, Eric,
He's a developer.
okay, I'm going to move you over so that if you do talk, you have the ability. So one moment, it's going to look like I kicked you out, but one moment. Okay, Wendy, you're good to go. Thank you.
Okay. And which microphone is better?
Probably the one you...
This one?
Yeah.
Okay, and Asani, if you could put up the future land use map, I'll get started. Good evening. My name is Wendy Sharif. I'm a planner with JEB Engineers. My business address is 250 South Beechwood Avenue in Boise, Idaho. Again, we're here this evening not with a CUP or a preliminary plat. We're here with the annexation, the request for an annexation of 18.45 acres with zoning of R15 and a comprehensive plan map amendment. We're requesting medium and high density residential, which would allow us to request the R15 zoning. I think a really key part of our proposal and why we think this project makes sense here is to look at the location of where this site is. We are located on Meridian Road, on a principal arterial, where there's an existing 36,000 trips a day. So we are on a principal roadway, fairly heavily trafficked, which is actually an ideal location for multifamily. If you look at directly, and if you look at the ACHC staff report, there will be in the capital improvements plan in the future widening of Victory Road. I know we have a number of neighbors here with concerns about Victory Road. In the ACHC staff report, there's mention of that being in their future capital improvements plan, where that section will be widened to 3 lanes between 2026 and 2030. So that is listed in the ACHC staff report, and we will be dedicating additional right-of-way for those future improvements. When I want to look at where our site is located, we are, and I don't know if a pointer is the best way to do this. We're located immediately adjacent to the Reidenbach Canal. It's the northern border of our site, and it separates Victory Road and the Reidenbach Canal separate us from some single-family residential, which is to the north of us. And out of our surrounding land uses to the south, we have some R8 single-family residential. Immediately to the north, we have some light office uses. And where we have R4 zoning, that is buffered by both the Reidenbach Canal and Victory Road, separates our future land use, our potential land use, from that single family. And I wanted to kind of walk us through the 4 corners of this area. If we look at the northwest corner of Victory and Meridian Road, immediately to the north of us, we have light office uses. You can see that in purple. Oh, I can't use this. Thank you.
No, it's not.
Okay.
I thought it would let you.
I'm going to pretend. And Sonny, there's another site plan I emailed to Adrian, and I just emailed it to you. I don't know if you can pull it up. That has some of our colored renditions and some of our landscaping, and actually shows that pathway sidewalk that one of the P&Z commissioners brought up. I don't know, Adrian, if you could put that up. I sent you a couple of elevations, and there's a site plan.
It's likely that I put them in the public record, but I didn't put them for presentation, so hang on.
And I just emailed to Sonia a little bit ago, too. And I've got my board, if that won't come up. I think our colored up site plan does give a nice representation and shows where that sidewalk is going to be put in. Well, while you look for that, I'm going to go ahead and run through the corners. Yeah, it looks like this was sent over. Well, so we're going to go through at the northwest corner of Victory and Meridian Road. Immediately to the north of our site, we have light office use, and where we have single-family residential to the north, we are buffered, actually by a couple of things. We have Reidenbach Canal, we have Victory Road, and on the northern portion of our site, to create a future buffer, we're actually proposing townhomes rather than 4-plex units. If you look at the northeast corner of Victory and Meridian Road, we have commercial land uses, and this is actually a fairly high-intense land use. This is where we have legacy feed and fuel and some future commercial developments. So these are our neighbors where we're proposing this multifamily. If you go and you look at the southeast corner, directly across the street from our proposed land use, we have R15 zoning and the Red Tail Apartments. So this is a high-end multifamily, I think a comparable project, directly across the street with the Red Tail Apartments. If you look at the southwest corner, where we're located at Victory, we have R8 to the south, and then immediately to the west, we have kind of an out parcel, which is currently still in the county with RUT zoning, which I know what the property seller had gone and spoken with those neighbors, and they were interested in staying put, but that's a property that will eventually be brought into the city of Meridian and probably developed at some point. That's currently in, thank you, that's That's the site plan. So this is our colored up site plan that actually shows.
You should now be able to use the mouse.
And I can
Hopefully.
use the mouse.
There you go.
Thank you all. And this is, yeah, I think a much better representation of what we're proposing. And we have a number of changes from when I held my neighborhood meeting several months ago. I did a virtual neighborhood meeting with the neighbors within 300 feet, and they saw a different site plan with all fourplexes. So I want to kind of tell you guys, we're actually, from when we initially came in and did a pre-application meeting with the city of Meridian, we've done a lot of work, and really staff has helped us to make sure what we're proposing is compatible to certain land uses. We are on the 13th version of our site plan. This is, I believe, this may be site 14. This came up just this week. We made many, many changes to make sure that our design fits the neighborhood. We started out with 200 plus fourplex unit project. We are now down to 170 units. And I want to go through and point out where we are now proposing townhomes, which is actually technically a single family use. We're proposing townhomes where we're bordering the site to the property to the north along the Reidenbach Canal. This entire area, which is located in the northwest corner of the site, these are now all townhomes, where we are to the south of Victory Road and that single family neighborhood with R4 zoning. We're proposing all townhomes. And where we are adjacent to single family, the southern portion of our site, those are also all townhomes. So what we are proposing is essentially an R8 use. These are townhomes where we are bordering single family. So we are not proposing any fourplexes or what are technically multifamily uses adjacent to single family. I wanted to kind of run through some of our amenities. I think once this is constructed, this is going to be a really first-rate project. This developer recently constructed the Enclave on Locust Grove. It's a top-notch project. It was rented out, just to kind of show you demand in the Treasure Valley. All units were rented out within 90 days. And we have a flyover we could show you, kind of showing what that project looks like. I know a lot of people in Meridian have seen it, and we're proposing similar amenities in this project. We're proposing a clubhouse and swimming pool. We have a large open space recreation area, and I think kind of a really unique feature for this project. On the north side of the Reidenbach Canal, in that northeast corner, we're proposing a dog park with landscaping, art features, and we're going to have a pedestrian access point across the Reidenbach Canal for residents to take dogs to this recreation area where we're planning a dog park. So we will have over 10% open space. We are putting in along Meridian Road a pathway section, and then we will meet ACHD's recommendations on, it's essentially kind of the southern sidewalk for West Victory Road will be located, not technically it's a pathway, it's a sidewalk, will be located on the south side of the Reidenbach Canal. And we will put that into our concept plan or our future plan. You can see, on the north side of the Reidenbach Canal. You can see this on our site plan. And I want to talk a little bit about the comprehensive plan amendment that we are proposing. The comprehensive plan designation currently is medium density residential, which would allow R8 zoning as an outright use. So our townhomes that we're proposing are an outright use with our current comprehensive plan. In order to request R15 zoning and to do fourplexes, we do need to make a request for medium high density residential. We've worked a lot with city staff on what they needed to see to feel comfortable and to be supportive of the comprehensive plan change. We have a positive recommendation from staff, which we earned. We've made a lot of changes to our site plan, dropped our density down quite a bit, and really, I think, negotiated that for what's going to be the best deal for the city. But the comprehensive plan policies that are supportive of what our comprehensive plan change are your comprehensive plan asked for higher density to be located along transportation corridors, which is what we're located in here along Meridian Road. And again, this is a principal arterial of 36,000 trips a day. So this is where you do want to see your multifamily housing, is in this type of transportation corridor. Your comprehensive plan also calls for diversity of housing types. I know in this area directly, just across the street, I worked on the Cabin Ridge project, which were some single-family projects with R8 zoning. So this is helping to bring some diversity of housing types and needed housing types. There's an extremely low vacancy rate for multifamily. And I think actually multifamily has changed maybe from what we had lived in when we first started college. Most of the multifamily in Meridian, the rental for a 1 or 2 bedroom unit is more than my house in Boise. So it has gotten quite a bit more expensive, but it does provide people a diversity of housing types where you have, couples who are new to the area, gives them places for seniors, it gives them housing reorganization. So there are a lot of different people where there are positions in their life where it makes sense to be in multifamily. And this helps to create a diversity of housing types. And again, we've really gone in and with our site plan revisions, made a lot of changes to make sure that we're compatible with the surrounding land uses. We'd originally come in with our pre-application with all 4 plexes. Where we are adjacent to single family, we are now only proposing townhomes. So it's an R8 zoning use, so townhomes we're proposing, and we've really made a lot of concessions to make sure that we're compatible with those surrounding neighbors. So I'm here for any other questions. I also wanted to run through some of the elevations just to show you the quality of the project that we're proposing. So put those up. So these are some of the townhome units where you can see they're definitely with a variety of building materials. It's a high-end project with the two doors on the front, and we've got 2 different sets of elevations for the town. But these are definitely very compatible with. They have garages included, they'll have driveways, very compatible with the surrounding single-family uses. And again, we will not have any 4plexes immediately adjacent to single-family uses. And our neighbors to the north, again, we are bordered by Reidenbach Canal and Victory Road and a row of townhomes. We do not have any 4plexes adjacent to single-family uses. So I think this is going to be really going to bring a diversity of housing types, and I think will be a nice addition to this part of Meridian. We've had one neighborhood meeting with the neighbors, and it was early on. Unfortunately, we've done a lot of changes since they last saw the site plan, and I don't know if they've seen the changes that we've made with the town hall. But I think we've really answered a lot of their concerns, and I think ACHD's staff report, where they talked about the changes that will be made to Victory Road in the future, I think addressed some of those other concerns for the neighbors in regards to traffic. And we will be, when we submit a conditional use permit, we'll be submitting a TIS at that point and a full site plan for review. So at this point, we are just asking for an annexation of the city of Meridian for 18.45 acres in the R15 zoning. And we would be held in compliance with this site plan presented. So I'm here for any other questions.
Wendy,
Chair.
Commissioner Seal, go right ahead.
Sorry, Ryan, one moment. Can't hear you. Try again.
Wendy, this quick question. Reading through ACHG's report, I know they say it's on the plan. Do they give you any dates? Because my understanding is it's not on the SIP where there's a date yet.
Chair, Commissioners, I'm going to go ahead and get out my ACHG staff report. It was just finalized. I believe it was on Tuesday.
And I might have missed the date, but I thought it was on there.
Page 2, item 8, and I'm going to go ahead and quote it. Victory Road is listed in the CIP to be widened to 3 lanes from Meridian Road to Locust Grove between 2026 and 2030.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out because I thought I had missed it.
So that is from the ACHG staff report.
Commissioner Seal, go right ahead, sir.
And again, we would be submitting a full transportation study with our conditional use permit. Anytime you're proposing 100 homes or units, that is a part of review, and you're required to mitigate for your impacts at that point. But because we're just applying for annexation at this point, we don't have a TIS this evening, or at this point.
The question I have is, and the reason I asked staff about if there'd been a change to this, in the 13 or 14 plans that you went through, were any of them R8? Or was it just you planned for R15 from the beginning and hoping for the change to happen?
Chairman, Commissioners, due to the site constraints, we've got a really unusually shaped parcel where we're bound by the Reidenbach Canal and Meridian Road, and current market prices for property, it would not be feasible to develop this as a single family. For this to go in, for someone to come in and look at an R8 zoning, it doesn't pencil out. I mean, to go in and develop a project, it is a business. At the end, you need to be able to make a profit, and it would be financially infeasible to go in with this site with the crossing that's proposed, with the improvements, with the utilities that are extended, with the road improvements in this area. It would be unfeasible to develop it as a single family site. So most likely the site would sit, if not developed for a higher intensity use.
Okay.
Commissioner McCarville, go right ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. When are you anticipating occupancy on this project?
Chairman, Commissioners, if we're able to achieve annexation, I think it's most likely that's 2 years down the road. We would, at that point, go in, do engineering design, do a traffic study, come and do another round of hearings through planning and zoning and city council with our conditional use permit, have review of our engineering drawings. We'd start construction, I think we're most likely at least 1.5 to 2 years from that.
Wendy,
Of course, all this depends on market conditions.
in regards to the comprehensive plan process we just finished, why didn't you guys bring us to that plan process? Because if you didn't own it, that's one thing, but how long has this process been going on when it wasn't involved in the process when we just changed the comprehensive plan?
Chairman, Commissioners, yeah, that's a good point. And my client, the developer who constructed Little Creek, the enclave, he does not own this property. He has an option. The property owner is in Idaho Falls, and I think that they did not get a comprehensive plan. They were not part of the comprehensive plan process. I think that is what happened. My client was not did not have an interest in the property at the time it went through the process.
Thank you. Commissioner Holland, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Wendy. So one question I have, there was a lot of public testimony, and I know I read 70 some responses that were in there this afternoon. One of the biggest challenges a lot of people were talking about was the access to Victory and how people would come in there. It is a really funny road, the way that it curves. I've driven it many times. Would it be a right in, right out kind of concept, or would there still be people crossing traffic there on that curve? Can you talk a little bit to the safety of that intersection of entering the complex? Because that was one of the biggest concerns I heard.
Chairman, Commissioners, I don't know if we can get our site plan back up here, but let's talk about that. And again, this would be addressed when we submit engineering and when we submit a transportation study. But I think at this point it would be a right in, right out at Victory. We will not have a direct access point on Meridian Road. So our access point will be on Victory. I don't know if we can get our site plan up.
It should be in the Y drive.
But we'll work with engineering, and that would be a part of our transportation study, would be how that access would work. But at this point, it would be a right in, right out. Any other questions on that? I think you could probably condition that as, will meet ACHD and Public Works requirements regarding access on Victory Road. So we will be adjoining, or we will be aligning with a road to the north that continues through the subdivision to the north of our property. And we're proposing to construct a public road section. So when there's future development in the area, we will be creating a road, a public stub to the property that's immediately to the west of our property. So that will allow for that roadway to continue. That was the recommendation of staff, that we provide that public road stub.
Mr. Grove, go right ahead, sir.
Mr. Chair, Wendy, I have a couple questions for you. On the ACHD report, it says that the Victory Road improvements would take place between Meridian and Locust Grove. Is that, my understanding, that is on the east side of Meridian Road, so that have no impact on this project. Is that correct in how I'm reading that?
Mayor, Councilmember, that is the portion that is in the CIP. We are dedicating additional right-of-way for future improvements for Victory Road. Okay, that is a part of our ACHD recommendation.
I guess what I'm getting at is I didn't see anything that indicated what would be possible with Victory Road, because the comments were about a section of Victory Road that is not adjacent to your project. So have you been in discussions with them on what those improvements will be in terms of how it impacts this project?
Chairman, council members, Victory Road is currently at an acceptable level of service. When we submit our transportation study, and that's in our staff report, when we submit our transportation study, we will at that point be providing projected traffic counts based on the land uses proposed. And if there are additional mitigations at that point, we would either construct additional improvements or we would be charged impact fees for those improvements. So but that is something that doesn't go along with an annexation. That would come along with our conditional use permit. We have not done the TIS at this point. We were just requesting annexation. That would be a condition of the conditional use permit. We would not be allowed to construct, obviously, until we met ACHC recommendations for access, for traffic, and City Meridian. But that's something to be determined with the conditional use permit.
Mr. Chair, I have a second question, if I could.
Go right ahead.
Wendy, another road question. It looks like you're stubbing to the west with a potential future roadway extension, but there's nothing that is connecting to the south. I'm assuming it's because the property that would connect to the Peoria Way is not a part of your project. But I guess my question is, how do you see this tying into the subdivision that's directly south of your project?
Chairman, Commissioners, if you take a look at the site plan we have, the property that is immediately at the southeast of our project, where we have that existing single family, that's a constructed subdivision. We are not stubbing; those are existing homes. The property that is not a part of our project, that's immediately to the west, that square where we're proposing to stub the public road, they also, if that property to develop, they are adjacent to an existing built-out area. So I would not anticipate that they would stub or that there'd be a need for them to stub. So no, and typically, I mean, as a planner, you provide a stub to each of your surrounding areas. when you're proposing a project next to a constructed subdivision, when you're essentially infill, you don't provide that stub. And I don't imagine the neighbors would want us to. The road that we, Chairman, Commissioners, and I did want to point out that where we are going to have our access point onto Victory Road, we are aligning with an existing stub for the residential neighborhood that's to the north, and that's kind of the recommendation of staff, recommendation of ACC, that we align our access point with that other existing access point.
Wendy, I know you don't have to do your TIS yet, but do you have a traffic count estimation with the current numbers right now, just for informational and put it on the record?
Chairman, Commissioners, without having done the TIS, I wouldn't be comfortable having that on the record.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner McCarville.
Yeah, I guess let me ask it another way. I mean, given the conditions of that roadway, and I myself have, again, driven it many times, it's 25-mile-an-hour zone through there because of the way that road is. Just how do you anticipate this being functional without having the third lane in there? I mean, obviously people are going to turn in from Meridian Road and want to take a left there. How do you anticipate that being functional without a third lane?
So, and Chairman, Commissioners, I think if you look at the scale of what we're proposing, we're not proposing a commercial use that generates a lot of trips. This is a residential use with 170 units, and currently there's an acceptable level of service on Victory Road. As a part of our TIS, we'll be projecting our future trips, and if there are improvements that need to be made or impact fees to be paid, that will be a part of the conditional use process. But right now there's an acceptable level of service, according to ACHD on Victory Road, and we are proposing 170 units. It's not an 800 unit project or a heavy intensity commercial use with a lot of traffic. It is a change for this area. This property has been vacant, yes, but it's an existing acceptable level of service.
Wendy, I get what you're saying on the acceptable level of service. The challenge I think I have, and I think what Commissioner, I don't want to put words in Commissioner McCarville's mouth, but I think the concern is that we're up zoning. I mean, the comp plan is changing to basically take it to a higher density. And if we're putting 170 units worth of traffic into that small space without a connection point going south or west, that road not being changed and potentially not until 2030, that's, I think, our concern is we're taking a comp plan that just got completed and dropping a higher level of intensity in that corner with a road that's really challenged, I think is. And so I understand what you're saying, but I think the question we're trying to all get at is it's a single point of access with 170 units dumping out onto a road that is probably not the best shape, at least for traffic flow right now. So can you comment on that? I guess that's the crux of a lot of our questions.
Okay. So Chairman, Commissioners, again, with Victory Road and what we're proposing, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it would be our client would be proceeding after they would be securing annexation, a comprehensive plan change in zoning. They are not going to be able to pull a building permit or get a CUP approved until those traffic issues. So this is kind of the first round of entitlement, but I think what you have, in your back pocket or for security is this. Unless we have a TIS that shows an acceptable level of service or improvements to be made, this CUP, which would enable them to pull permits and develop this project, would not be approved. So we were applying just for the concept plan, but this project would not reach fruition unless that was adequately dealt with in the future. So that's your safeguard you have.
Okay, appreciate that. Additional questions for the applicant? Okay. Wendy, thank you very much. We'll definitely have you back up to close and cover anything that comes up in public testimony.
Right, and thank you very much. And I just want to make sure that you know that we're definitely we're here to talk with you. I mean, if you have ideas on changes or improvements, we want to talk. We want to work with the Planning and Zoning Commission and with the neighbors. So we're definitely, this is not the only plan we can produce. If we need to come back and talk with you some more, please let us. We want to make sure that this project works for the city of Meridian. Thank you.
Thanks, ma'am. We appreciate it. Madam Clerk, do you have an initial list of public testimony that we'd like to start from?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have several people online and several people in the room that have indicated they wish to testify. I'm going to start first with Thad. He is already online and ready to speak. Thad, if you want to unmute your microphone and state your name and address for the record, please. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name's Thad Murata. I live at 2857 South Alpani Way, Meridian 83642. I just had a few questions earlier, and I think you guys addressed them great, but I have one question, and that's regarding home values and the impact to home values. I guess I actually have two questions that gets taken into consideration. And then the other question I have is, with the acceptable traffic or amount of traffic that is going through Victory Road, is that the current state, or is that taking into consideration the new development that's occurring to the east in the same area?
And that, I think we'll probably, we'll get the applicant to comment on that as they come back up, and we'll make sure your questions get answered.
Okay. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate you participating. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Seal.
do we want to try and recognize if there's anybody from an HOA or something like that before?
That was actually my next question.
Okay.
Yeah, good call. Madam Clerk, do we have the HOA president? Was he going to speak tonight to start this thing off?
Mr. Chair, I am unaware. I do have people signed in, but the form that we're using currently doesn't have the information regarding whether the person is representing an HOA or not. I do have a gentleman in the front row who is indicating he is with an HOA. Do you want to go ahead and step forward to the podium? Is there anybody that has signed up that is ceding their time to the gentleman who is representing the homeowners association? I am signed up. Okay. And are you representing anybody in the room that has also signed up? No. Okay, but you are representing a homeowners association? Oh, okay. So he indicated that he just needs his 3 minutes, so will not be representing the association.
Okay.
Okay, but you don't need 10 minutes, sir. Sorry, I'm a little confused.
Okay, what do we have here? The front picture. My name, first of all, I am Larry Chase. I live at 309 West Galvani Drive, which is directly north of this project, in a subdivision called Strada Bellissimo, which has 89 homes in it. I am the HOA board president. When this project was proposed, we first learned of it, the board met. We meet via email these days. And the board had much discussion about this project and passed the motion that the board does not approve of this project. We had the discussions that we held primarily resolve around the entryway. They resolve around the number of additional children in the schools. Let me go back to the entryway because I want to talk about that for a minute. On this chart that you're seeing on your screen, that entryway on Alfine Drive, I don't even know how to pronounce it, is a two-lane with an island in the center. I noticed on their proposal, it's a two-lane with no island in the center because they have to build a bridge across the canal. And so you have a little mismatch start with of how these two roads come together. Alfani Drive that comes out serves Strata Bellissimo, our 89 homes, but it also serves the subdivisions that are north of Strata Bellissimo. There's about 300 or 400 homes. So this intersection today is quite busy, extremely busy. Adding this to this intersection is going to create some issues that I think from your point of view, you who are voting on this, who will then pass it to City Council, will become a future issue that you have to be dealing with on an ongoing basis. Adding the children to the schools is also a future issue that you wind up adding to the future. And then you think about property tax. Property tax has to do with the value of the homes in the area. And if the value of the homes in the area become influenced by the additional projects that are putting in the area, that hits the revenue of the city. So for those reasons, the board of Strata Bellissimo said we do not approve of this. And I believe there are other folks here that want to say similar things, and I will let them do it. And thank you very much.
Hey guys, let's keep the applause to a minimum. We're gonna let everybody have their piece and let everybody say what they want to say. Let's keep the applause to yourselves, please. Appreciate that. Madam Clerk, do you want to go to the next person?
Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead and admit Annette Alonso. She raised her hand when we talked about HOAs. So Annette, one moment. Annette, go ahead.
You hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Hello, the Commission and Commission Chair. This is Annette Alonso, and I'm representing the Southern Rim Coalition. And I know you guys have heard from me before, and I'm sorry to be on here again, but I'm helping my community here. So I'm a little confused because it's my understanding that flume amendments are just supposed to be done twice a year, or maybe that's just a new change, unless they're a subdivision plan that's coming all at the same time. And so I don't understand what's happening here because they're not applying for the development right now. They're just applying for a flume change. And this whole flume was, the whole comprehensive plan and the flume was just approved in January of this year. So I think it's a little preemptive for us to be changing things already to a higher density when we just got this thing set. So I'm a little confused by that to start out with. So I just would like maybe some thought on that, or something from the developer to talk about that. My second point is going to be that according to 3.03.03, annexations of lands are only, it says only when it conforms to city vision. Okay, this is obviously isn't conforming to the city vision because this is going from medium density residential to medium high density residential, and we're having to do an amendment. So that's probably my main point. Second point is 2.0201E. It says we're supposed to encourage development of high quality dense residential near, in, and around downtown employment, large shopping centers, public open space, and parks. And based on this location, there is no shopping center. There's a small area across kitty corner across Meridian Road and Victory that's being developed, but it's not going to be a shopping center by any stretch of the imagination. And across to the north, it's just only like some orthodontist office and some dentist office. So that doesn't work there. There's no public open space or parks, and it's not near downtown. And there's absolutely no public transit here, which is generally essential when we have higher density residential. They generally like to take the public transit. So then that moves me on to my third point. their reasoning for asking for this amendment. And generally when we ask for an amendment, there has to be some really good reasoning here. And the only reason I hear is that they sent some things about housing diversity and how they put some documentation in there that they looked and that the South units, that units around here in Meridian need to be more diverse in their housing types. And their other reason was to do anything else was financially infeasible. Well, I don't think that the city's job is to make sure that developers make money. I don't think that that's the point of this. So I think that their reasoning is a little short. And then my fourth is, of course, Victory. When you come, if you're coming from the west and you're going towards Meridian Road, coming down that hill, it looks like you're going to run directly into the canal. It's a very, very dangerous road, especially if there's any ice on the road, because you have to make that turn right there, or you're going to go straight into the canal. And I can see why the people around here, the residents, are complaining, because that's a very dangerous road and this will add a lot more cars to it. So with that, that's about all I have to say. Take it for what it's worth, but that's how we feel from the Southern Rim Coalition's point of view. Thank you.
Ms. Alonso, we appreciate you being here. Thank you. Madam Clerk, do you want to swap back and forth between in-person and online?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Next, we have in person Tanya Edmondson.
Tanya, thank you for being here tonight. Please state your name and your address for the record for us.
Tanya Edmondson. I'm at 3086 South Silvertip Lane, Meridian, Idaho 83642. Where I live, as you look at this, is right around the corner. I live right up on the corner of Victory and Stoddard. I pretty much try to avoid Victory as much as I can. I'm going to, continue to restate what everybody else has been stating about West Victory Road. It is one of the most dangerous roads out there. There's a lot of young drivers that like to drive there. One of the things I see about this is we get a lot more younger drivers, younger people going through there. There was the talk about right in and right out. I don't see how you could do that if people are coming home on South Meridian Road, turning right, and then lining up to turn left in there. 5 o'clock traffic, it does back way up. There's quite a bit of traffic that still comes down West Victory Road going towards Meridian. And to me, that's one of the biggest issues, is just the danger of that whole corner. And I look at this and I see that once they start putting those townhouses in, that it takes away all possibilities of West Victory Road ever being straightened out, which is what I really think needs to be on the plan at some point, is to straighten that section of Victory Road out. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, next on the line, we have Jen Loveday. Jen, one moment.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Please state your name and your address for the record, and the floor is yours, ma'am.
Hi, thank you. My name is Jen Loveday. I live at 1113 East Crest Ridge Drive in Meridian, 83642. I have a lot of concerns, most of which have been raised already. Traffic, primarily, with a lot of two-lane roads out here in what used to be the country, is quickly becoming more and more tied in with denser housing units like we see here. And a couple of things that I heard, it was an ideal spot because it's right across from another apartment complex. And to me, that doesn't really justify having a high density area existing and then plop on even more higher density housing on top of that, because at that rate, we're just going to keep having more and more higher density transition out here in the south. You've got all that high density in the north already. Most of us, the people that I know that moved out south here, have lived here for a long time. We enjoy the peace and quiet and more spread out, not so dense and packed in next to each other. We love the quiet. We love having fields. We love having, you know, space to go out and drive and see some farm, you know, or nice houses or whatever. We don't have the services out here yet to support even more housing. I know it's coming, but when will that be? It always seems like we're lagging behind new construction. They always throw the houses in and then we suffer for 4 or 5 years and then we finally get improvements. You know, I think what everybody's saying, at least from my perspective, is let's do it smart. Let's, you know, let's give some people a break coming home from work and put some infrastructure in place and then maybe look at some higher density housing. But I know for me, south of the freeway, I just really like it quiet. You're getting further away from the city. And so, yeah, and just echoing what everybody else is saying with housing, you know, is our housing values going to go down? You know, so that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks, Ms. Loveday. We appreciate you being here tonight. Thanks for your participation.
Mr. Chair, next in person, we have Stephen Humphreys.
Mr. Humphreys, please state your name and your address for the record, and the floor is yours when you're ready, sir.
My name is Stephen Humphreys. We live at 300 West Fortini Street, Meridian, Idaho 83642. My wife and I have lived in this property for 13 years. We've seen a lot of changes taking place. Not all of them for the better, but we hope to get there someday. Without sounding too repetitive, my concerns are the concerns that are shared by many of the people that submitted public comment. The practical reality is that I took the time to read everything, the comprehensive plan, the applicant's application, and I understand what the concerns are, and I share the concerns. The traffic issue is exactly as everybody has spoken it would be. Victory Road is a nightmare and it's not going to heal itself. The person that was just speaking had a great idea, and that is to put the infrastructure in first before we put the high density housing in. And I absolutely agree with that. On the corner of Alfani and Victory Road, near the on the entrance to the subdivision of Strata Bellissima, there's a school bus stop. So now we've got children entering into this single access point into this proposed development. I fear for their safety. There are continuing bus stops heading to the west towards Stoddard Road and Linder Road. The question was once asked earlier about people coming through Strata Bellissima subdivision. And if you're coming in the afternoon, the evening, home from work, and you're heading south on Meridian Road, and you can't turn left into this proposed subdivision, proposed townhouse, because it's right in and right out. People are going to take the shortest path, and they're going to cut through Strata Bellissima subdivision, where we have a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. They're going to drive right past our little park that we have in there where the children play, and we just put these children at risk one more time. Speaking of the children, West Ada School District, the 3 schools that are represented to be the closest to this project are all at or above capacity. I don't know how we can serve this any further without building new schools, without funding this, and again, put the infrastructure before the construction. There is no transit. Somebody brought that up earlier. The closest transit point is on Overland, approximately a mile and a half away from this. So if that's the goal, is to have transit for the occupants of these of this high density project, that's not going to work, and that's going to have to change. How are you going to do that? You're going to put transit on Victory? No, and they're not going to allow it on Meridian Road. So again, just one more problem that we have to face. Concerned with the effect of property values being affected, the bottom line is that a lot of people that I've come in contact with feel that the city of Meridian leadership
doesn't really have any concern over what their opinions are, how they feel. And I would like to bring it to this council that it's important that you do understand what we're concerned with. You do feel our pain with this and will do the right thing. And just please deny this application for annexation and for zone change. We don't need that right now. We're in a good place with that. There is a developer that will come along and develop that property for a use that is more applicable to where we live. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, joining us on Zoom is Julie Langlois.
Good evening.
Good evening, Julie. Go ahead and state your name and your address for the record, please, ma'am.
Thank you. Julie Langlois, 3556 Rustler in Meridian. The Riddenbaugh Canal was begun in 1878 by William Riddenbaugh to irrigate a large ranch owned by his uncle. By 1913, the canal had been expanded from an original length of 6 miles to nearly 40 miles, and it carried water to more than 1,000 customers, including over 600 farms. This is one of the most unique water canals in Meridian. Victory Road was built alongside this original canal as it twists and turns from Meridian Road to the west. This beautiful canal needs to be made a feature in Southwest Meridian with a wide linear park, gathering spaces, and a multi-user pathway so that our residents can enjoy this historic water feature. The comprehensive plan states, protect and enhance its existing waterways, groundwater, wetlands, wildlife habitat, air, soils, and other natural resources. And the Idaho Code says to ensure that the important environmental features of the state and localities are protected, and also to ensure that the development on land is commensurate with the physical characteristics of the land. Mr. Hood once stated that leaving the comprehensive plan open to some change allows for Meridian to grow or adapt to the requests of the market and residents. Residents clearly do not want higher density, and whether the market calls for more apartments or not is a moot point. This is clearly not an area suited for medium high density. If anything, we would ask that there be a comprehensive plan amendment lowering the density of this property. In October of 2019, the then developer of this property tried to make a case to have the property designated commercial or mixed use community. Now the new developer is trying to make the case for medium high density. This corner, located on a busy corridor, is most certainly a place for multi-use commercial, residential, or office, similar to Strata Bellissima, developed to the north, which has a well-done transition from the busy Meridian corridor to the low-density neighborhood behind it. This is what many stakeholders would like to see on this corner, along with, and this is important, a proper transition from the properties to the south and west. We also agree with the former developer that the Red Tail apartments across the street are underserved by the lack of significant commercial, retail, transit, and employment nearby in violation of the comprehensive plan. The addition of the recent Southridge apartments with 476 units on overland west of 10 Mile is more suited to the higher density, although when built, they will also lack a large shopping center and any public open space or park. We in Southwest Meridian would prefer to play, work, and recreate in our own neighborhood, yet there is a lack of services and gathering places to keep us here. Most of us would like to avoid Eagle Road as much as possible. We in Southwest Meridian need family-friendly areas to gather, shop, and work, not higher density housing. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, next in person, we have Gary Wenzel.
I've heard enough already from all my neighbors, and I agree with everything.
Thank you, Mr. Wenzel. He is ceding his time to his other neighbors. He says that they have echoed his concerns already. We'll move on to Pam Layton. Nope, I'm sorry, Pam, you did not. How about Jeff Layton?
We greatly appreciate you guys consolidating your comments because that helps us get through and make sure everybody gets heard. So if we've heard from your comments, that helps us get all the big issues out there. So thank you for that.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Leeton. I live at 3010 South Giovanni Way.
in Meridian, Idaho, 83642. I've already submitted my statement online with my wife. I'd just like to talk about a couple issues. We've talked about the intersection at Alfani. It's important to know that's the only southern, let me think correctly, southern exit for Strata Bellissima or Bear Creek, unless you go over to Stoddard. So all those two subdivisions will come, if they're going on to Victory, they're going to come out on Alfani. It's also important to know that from Victory, that's the only stoplight we have where we can turn left, get on the street to go towards Meridian, all the way down to Meridian Road. So those two spots are log jams if we're not careful about it. The road, Victory Road, has been talked about as being an S road. When they started building the additions to Kentucky Ridge, it was the time for this ACHD to fix that canal. They're going to have to cover that canal. On the north side of the canal, there's property, a part of Bear Creek, that drops down probably 30 feet. To straighten that road, you're going to have to bring in dirt to fill that road to straighten that road. They should have done that while they had the room to do that. It's too late now. And then there's a new subdivision on the other side. But in the time we lived in Kentucky Way for about 8 years, and then we moved over to Strata Bellissima. So we've been in the area for 20 years. In those 20 years, I'd like to point out that Strata Bellissima was built. We're currently going through Timberline Estates, Kentucky Ridge Expansion, Oakwood, Edge Hill, an unnamed development that's on Linder and Victory that is taking up half of that whole area, which used to be filled, Southridge, Fall Creek, Observation Point, and Red Tail. And all of those subdivisions feed into that intersection at Victory and Meridian Road. The street light, if we have a street light when we come out of our subdivision there on Alfani, I've seen traffic already backed up to where you couldn't turn left to get on that without any of the additions. Right now, if you go there and look, it's pretty desolate with the pandemic, but in high traffic areas, there's traffic jams already without anything else. So I'd just like to ask you to consider those when you're making your decision. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, next online, we have Saul Hernandez.
Good evening, and thank you for the time. I'm going to be respectful, but I will
Mr.
also
Hernandez,
be bold.
can you state your name and your address for the record, sir? Sorry to interrupt you. Can you state your name and your address?
No, I apologize. Saul Hernandez, 2811 South Alfani Way, Meridian, Idaho. So I was saying, I'll be respectful, but I also want to be bold in my statement. I heard mention of this is beneficial because for people to get to jobs. I don't know what jobs we're talking about in our area. There was also mention that currently it's acceptable enough service according to ACHD, meaning traffic patterns. And I've also heard we have not done a study yet. I keep hearing we haven't done a study. Yet we're trying to propose a project that it sounds like it'll start 1.5 to 2 years down the road. But when I hear currently there's enough service according to ACHD, that's currently 1.5 to 2 years from now, it's going to be a different story. If you guys approve the annexation of this project 1.5 to 2 years on the road, it may not happen. The last thing I'll say is this only makes sense for investors. It was mentioned that we didn't develop this property to housing because it doesn't pencil. It's not profitable. The only reason why this project makes sense is because an investor will market this property as we are a mile off of the freeway. Therefore, they can charge more per rent. They make it sound like they're doing these families a favor, our community a favor by having this property, this project in this area. What makes sense for families is to lower their monthly rent. If you're that concerned about families and how much money they're spending, there's plenty of land that you can build this project. The issue is that it won't pencil for an investor. It won't pencil because they can't market it as 1 mile off the freeway. The best thing for families would be to put this in another place where they can charge less. Of course, if that's the real intent, which we all know that that's not the real intent. The only benefactor of this project will be the investor. The last thing I'll say, somebody mentioned, how are these people going to get to their property from South Meridian and then west on Victory? I'll tell you how these other people will, and my neighbor said it already. They're gonna go through Alfani. They're gonna go right in front of my house where my children play. As it is, there's select times of the day that I tell my children, don't go out there. This will further increase the risk to my children. And the last thing that we haven't really discussed, it's been mentioned, but we haven't really discussed is education. What are we going to do with education and provide schooling for our children? We are at overcapacity already. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. We appreciate you being a part of tonight.
Mr. Chair, next we have Joanne Phillips joining us in chambers.
Ms. Phillips, thank you for being with us tonight. Please state your name and your address for the record, please, ma'am.
Okay, which one do I use? This one? Okay. My name is Joanne Phillips. I live at 291 West Fortini, Meridian 83642. I'm in the Strata Bellissima subdivision. My husband and I have been there about 7 years. And most of the stuff that I was going to talk about has already been brought up, so I'm not going to repeat it, but I do agree with most of the speakers that live in the subdivision in nearby areas. I do have a couple of questions on record. The owner I noticed is SW Victory LLC out of Twin Falls. And And I understand that the entity that, I'm not going to mention his names, but he's got probably 350 LLCs in the Twin Falls area. So, but it never was mentioned who the client was that's building this complex. Is there any way that we could get that on record? That's purchasing the property from SW Victory LLC? Is that something that we should be on public record? Okay, and then one small thing is they mentioned they were going to put the sidewalk on the opposite side of the canal, which is really strange because that's not really going to help anybody that's walking down Victory. They're not going to go all the way into our apartment complex and use their sidewalk on the other side. I'm not really sure what kind of fencing, but I thought I read something that there was just going to be chain link fencing on that side Strata Bellissima is to protect people from the canal. Then I read says Victory Road is listed in the CIP to be widened to 3 lanes from Meridian Road to Locust Grove between 2026 and 2030. And I think that's been mentioned, that doesn't really help our situation right now. And it really doesn't affect that area where the apartment complex is. And then there was I just lost it on my phone. I think my phone is losing battery. But anyway, it said that under normal situations, a complex like this would require the developer to improve the adjacent road, which would be Victory, 17 feet from the center of the road as far as pavement. But that in reviewing it, since the canal did not allow this, that you didn't feel it would be necessary for those roads. Okay, so that I was questioning. And then my biggest concern is a lot of people that rent apartments are young and they don't have a driving experience and they get frustrated. And so I just can see what's going to happen in the subdivision. They're going to be jetting through the subdivision at well over 25 miles. And there's children in the subdivision. I have a granddaughter, and I just fear for the safety of the citizens in our subdivision and Bear Creek. And that's all I have to add. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, at this point, we just have in-person testimony, so we're taking a cleansing break for just a second, and Chris Wenzel will be up next.
And if you are online on Zoom, raise your hand using the Zoom raise your hand function if you would like to testify, and we haven't gotten to you yet.
And Mr. Chair, Chris has said that they will pass on their turn. So Peter Harpo. Sorry if I missed.
Madam Clerk, you're breaking up a little bit, just FYI.
Thank you.
Good job. Peter, oh,
I turned it on. Sorry, I had to turn it off while Chris cleaned it.
Ready? Okay. Peter H. Parpart, 3090 South Alfani Way in Meridian, Strata Bellissima. If you look at the site access or the site map that they were giving you, I'm the guy that lives right across the street from that bridge. Anyways, so yeah, I came here to talk a lot about the traffic and whatnot. If I tend to drift, I'm a night shift person. I just woke up, so I haven't had a lot of coffee yet. Came straight here. But we heard a lot of points regarding, different issues tonight. I mean, school over capacity, Victory Road congestion, poor planning regarding the access point. And I've been to that Locust Grove development that was mentioned over by like the Fred Meyer near Fairview and Locust Grove there. And that too has one access point, and it's right by the lights at Locust Grove and Fairview. So as you're trying to get to like the Fred Meyer, you're always stopping because there's 5 people wanting to get out, and then you miss the light. It takes forever. Very poorly planned. Bottom line on this project, though, is that it will violate the Meridian Comprehensive Plan policy by not, quote, preventing or mitigating against incompatible and detrimental neighborhood uses. If you approve this project, you'll be violating Meridian Comprehensive Plan policy, your own policy. It makes no sense to build 170 high-density apartments and condos or townhomes across the street from these $500,000 homes, and I'm not sure the square footage of these townhomes that will be put, quote, adjacent to the strata homes, but I can bet you their square footage is not compatible with my square footage. They're townhomes. Anyways, it makes as much sense as permitting a strip club and a liquor store across the street from a school. Just makes no sense. And did anyone tell the folks at Timberline Estates? They're building there now, and I'm sure a lot of people have prepaid for these lots. And has anyone told them that there's going to be this contraption built there, this this monstrosity with the traffic. Oh, it's gonna be great. Yeah, I can't wait for that. There's a couple of things I had so much math I did, but then they changed the plan, and so all my math is wrong. But the in and out thing, the in and out access, completely undoable. They're just gonna come ripping past my house. And since I sleep days, I'll thoroughly enjoy that. But the plan proposal also shows, now the new one, shows an extension, a road extension, a proposed road extension that would drain yet another subdivision out through their proposed project here, right into my front yard. And the one thing I wanted to really mention, and I'll close with this, and nobody, I guess, has noticed this, but I've lived at that corner for, oh gosh, since 2010. And for the last 8 years, I've been really excited to watch this every year. There is a nesting pair of peregrine falcons that live right on the other side of the canal where they're proposing a dog park. Now, the dog park would provide prey for the falcons, but I'm sure there would be tension. But by building this, you're going to put you're going to make homeless a pair of protected raptors. And maybe we need to just make it a raptor park or something. I don't know. Fun to watch these things, though. I'd invite you all to come out and park somewhere, not for miles. But they sit and they roost on the phone lines and trees right there, and they hunt all the little critters and they hunt the field mice in my backyard, thank goodness. But they're fascinating to watch. They've been there for years. They raise their young every year. And with this, all those locust trees will be gone. There'll be a dog park. There'll be apartments, and those falcons are going to be gone. And it's a protected thing. We should cherish this kind of stuff. And that's all I got. I yield any time that I want. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, next we have Karen Schmidt.
My name is Karen Schmidt, 355 West Victory Road, Meridian. So me and my husband live on the 5 acres to the west of the land that we're talking about. We've been there for 22 years, and through those years, we've had multiple developers come and talk to us about our property, purchase our property, to add to the 18 acres, purchase part of it for access, or to include us in the development. And our impression was always, and I think Annette was the one that brought this up, our impression was always that this would be zoned light commercial with transition to R4 like Strata Bellissima and Observation Point. So this is a really unique piece of property, and Meridian has the opportunity here to do something special with it. And it was Julie that mentioned the Reidenbach Canal, and I just want to add something to that. So I have documented this year probably about 24 birds that have passed through, or they're living there. And of those birds, the majority are on the migratory bird protected list. And all that's on the public record. I put the links and stuff there for you. So I just wanted to say that. The other policies that I wanted to mention have already been covered. One about the property values and the one about transition. So when I look at the plan, when I look at the new plan, there's a couple things I want to point out. The sidewalk that they talk about, that's going to have to dead end into our property as it runs along the canal there. It'll dead end into our property. The other thing I think Wendy mentioned, I couldn't really hear her. I thought she said that she had talked to us, or the developer had talked to us. And I see that you have the road running through our property for future development. It's stubbed off so that it's stubbed off at our property, and the future development, you see it running through our property. But nobody's talked to us about that. So the other thing I wanted to ask about was, staff mentioned that the school system had capacity. And when I read the agency report, from West Ada County, it says that those 3 schools affected were under capacity or at capacity. So I'd like clarification of that. And so that's it.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, next we have Kateri Belay. Sorry.
My name is Kateri Belay, and I live at 3315 South Peoria Way, 83642. And I have lived there since 1999. And when we moved in, everything around our subdivision, Willow Creek, was field. And now everything, except for this one field in front on this corner, is all subdivisions or planning to be subdivisions. And so what has happened is that all of the surrounding wildlife has been kind of compressed into the small field. I'm a biology student at Boise State. I'm also an intern with the Peregrine Fund and the Observatory and Ruth Malacar Bird Center, and I also studied in Spain with migration as well. So I've spent a lot of time watching the birds and watching the falcons and also use this area, as well as the fox that got my cat and the raccoon that comes and eats the cat food, and also the skunk, the voles, the moles, the ground squirrels, all of the animals the cat would bring, as well as songbirds, swans, hawks, kestrels, American kestrels, 2 nesting pairs of red tails. There's, I believe they're sharp-shinned hawks who nest in one of the trees in our neighborhood. They all use that field daily, all the time. And, you know, obviously people have talked about what's wrong. You know, there's a lot of things wrong with the development of this property, but no one's really talked about other options. You know, the lady talked about the Reidenbach Canal and that it should be a feature that is accentuated, because the other gentleman talked about the raptor park. So the fact that that little corner area, suggesting a dog park, is very small, and there are Canadian geese who nest so young there every year as well, and so it could be more feasible, if I could make a suggestion, to make it into a nature center. I grew up there, so I went to Mary McPherson, I went to Mountain View. I graduated 2015. Mountain View was over capacity then. Highest population school in the state of Idaho. I graduated 7 years ago, and there's not any other high school that is around the area. And I can only imagine how much worse it is now for those kids. I feel bad because we were already overpopulated then. And you have, I believe it's Victory Middle, Mary McPherson. If we make that into a nature center, that would be an area for outdoor learning. That would be an area for people who live in the area to enjoy nature. They can learn about the native habitat. The MK Nature Center, over there, it is interactive, but it has native plants that you would normally find in that area. Do the same thing with this area. Make it that has sagebrush, the native ecosystem that we have in this area, and that will support the wildlife that already exists there. So that would be a suggestion, possibly, that would be cheaper and make the quality of life much better. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, next signed up is Chris and Amanda Mailer.
Again, I appreciate the attendees kind of keeping your issues, if we've heard them already, kind of keep them to specific points that are new would be appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess first of all, my name is Chris Mahler. Live at 3022 South Giovanni Avenue. In addition to the points that were brought up about the potential for people going through the neighborhood, Strata Bellissima to access this new development. What I can say is it's already happening, frequently. In fact, my kids are the kids that we're talking about. I got an almost 2-year-old and an almost 5-year-old that, you know, we like to have them play in the front yard because we got a nice big driveway. Cars coming down the street, obviously not from our neighborhood because they come in one entrance and leave out the other. My house is one of the houses they have to drive by just before they leave the neighborhood. They're going 25 miles an hour with one house to go. So it's already happening. It's not like a potential. So I want to make that point. One of the points about the light commercial or light office just to the north of this development, that was brought up as one of the, I guess, adjacent employers per se, you know, for this community. But if it's a right in, right out, I don't understand how they're even going to get to work. For one, you got to turn out onto Meridian. You can take a left, but you can't take another left back into the light office area. So you're expecting people to drive, what, 4 or 5 miles to get across the street to work? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So that's a non-starter for these people. You know, you're relying on their best intentions to follow the traffic rules, right in, right out, but, you know, you're relying on people's best intentions. You're probably going to be disappointed a lot of the time. So, and I guess the other thing I wanted to find out, there was mention about, you know, if, you know, if they couldn't meet the traffic requirements that, or further down the road, they would either meet the requirements or there's some sort of it almost sounded like a fine, you know, almost like a penalty against the developer that would be in place of actually meeting the requirements. And I guess I was curious, is there a public place where we can understand what those fines are? I mean, I guess I just don't want it to be one of these things where they say, well, go ahead and charge us because that's a lesser penalty than actually making the improvements required to meet the requirements for the development. You know, almost like, you know, paying the fee rather than, you know, providing insurance for your employers if you're under the Obamacare plan. You know, it's just one of those things where, you know, if it's less expensive to just pay the fee and walk away, you know, that's probably going to happen. But, you know, we should probably understand what that is. And I'm making one last pass through here, and I think that was everything I had to say. So I appreciate your time.
Muller, we'll have the applicant address the traffic issue and when they can actually pull a trigger on developing. It's not necessarily a fine, but we'll have the applicant address that when they come back to close.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that's all we had that signed up to testify both online and in the room.
Is there anyone in the audience or online that would like to testify that hasn't yet? Commissioner Seal? Oh, I see a gentleman in the orange and black. If you want to come forward.
We also do have one online, Mr. Chair, that has raised their hand, so we'll go ahead and go to them next, if that's okay with you.
Sounds great. Sir, please state your name and your address for the record, and the floor is yours.
Hi, I'm Chris Keith, live at 181 West Winnipeg, and it just aggravates me a whole lot. We got the new subdivision. I live directly south of this plan thing. We got the new monstrosity complex of apartments. Our crime rate has gone up ridiculous. People are spraying painting BLM on brand new fences. Somebody's car got tagged with BLM, and somebody else tagged another fence, F COVID-19. Granted, these are probably kids, but that's all we're getting. It really aggravates me I'm native Idahoan. It's just so aggravating. Nobody ever touches down on pumping more people in. We don't have the infrastructure. I'm not just talking traffic, the water. We're gonna end up like California with no water all the time. It's just so aggravating. That's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Madam Clerk, do you want to head to the person online?
I'm getting in the speaking mode right now. Catherine, go ahead.
Catherine, can you hear us? Go right ahead, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hi, my name is Catherine Cantley. I'm at 3007 South Alfani Way, much like many of my neighbors here that have talked. I think a lot of the great points that were brought here, I respectfully agree with, and I hope that you take those into sincere consideration. My only comment really is just that I hope that before you make a decision, you really fact check all of the data that our developer has brought to the table. When they say things like we're under capacity for our schools and so forth, I hope you look at those trends going forward. I hope you look at how much under capacity they are. There's a lot of development in this area, as you know, south of the highway. And I just hope that you really look at those trends before you make a decision. We may be at or under capacity barely by 1 or 2 kids right now, but I guess I would just encourage this group to really look at the trends and see whether or not in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, we really truly will be under capacity for a lot of this development. And that's the only comment I really wanted to make. I respect your decision, but just I really hope that you look at the data going forward, not just at this present point in time.
Thanks, Catherine. We appreciate you participating tonight and give us your opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
So last call for anyone in the audience or online that would like to testify, please raise your hand.
Mr. Chair, we have 2 people raising their hands. Sir, you raise your hand first if you want to come up, please.
So one thing kind of struck me as
Sir, can you state your name and your address for the record, please?
Sorry. 359 West Orso, Stephen Howie. So we're living on the main street going through. There's already a lot of traffic. Kids, I don't even let them go out there. But so she said that basically there's an acceptable level of traffic, but yet they're going to expand it to 3 lanes. That struck me as odd because it's just, it's not in the part of Victory Road where they're expanding. So is it suitable for the traffic or is it not? This is what I noticed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We have one more in the audience that wishes to speak. He'll come up in just a second when we're done getting cleaned up.
I think you have one more online, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Hello, my name's Kurt Weimer. I'm at 3322 South Cobble Place. I'm in the Preakness subdivision. And primarily when I came here, I was concerned about the traffic and also about the home values. And thanks to my neighbors that have brought up a lot of extra valid points on why this should not be approved. My question, how many projects have already been approved? I live in Preakness. CBH is building dozens of homes right next to me. And, you know, it's all single family homes, and then, you know, get you have Timberline, you have L3, and you're talking hundreds, possibly of homes. How much more area is being built out as just single-family homes, and the effect that that's going to have on the traffic there too. That's my primary question. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, go ahead.
Hello, Peter Mark Schneido, 321 West Galvani Drive, Meridian, Idaho 83642. Our backyard butts up against Galvani Drive, and we've lived here for 6 years. I'm sorry, against Victory. But we've lived here 6 years. In 6 years, we have awoken in the middle of the night to 3 accidents, crashes on Victory Road. I just want to make sure that that's included in the record. 2 cars going into the canal and 1 going westbound into a off the road there at the curve. It's a dangerous curve. That should be documented, that the S curve there on Victory Road is not to be underestimated for its effect on traffic. And I second everything else regarding the schools, regarding the exit from Strada Bellissima. I don't recall it being mentioned, but we should mention that if somebody was to try to turn left into the Victory Apartments on Victory Road, there's not a lot of distance between that proposed entrance and Meridian Road. So if it got backed up, you could conceivably have a green light on Victory Road on the other side of Meridian Road and not be able to proceed across the intersection on your green light because traffic is backed up. Or of course, you could also not be able to turn right from southbound Meridian onto Victory Road. There's just not a lot of distance there. And we're trusting that people would not try to turn left into the apartment complex if that was the rule. And that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you with those points. Thank you. With that, do we have any additional raised hands? Commissioner Seal, you don't see anyone?
Mr. Chair, we have one more that would like to speak, who is in person with us.
Perfect. Sir, welcome. Please state your name and your address for the record.
Yes, my name is Leif Edmondson, and my address is 3086 South Silvertip Lane. I'm a little concerned because the applicant kept stressing in her presentation that the plan was really aimed at the Meridian Road. It's not, it's aimed at Victory Road. That's where it's all going to happen. It's already bad now. It's going to get worse if they do this without your intervention. Also, I really question staff. Please do a little more research on the fire code. You got 170 people, 170 units in a place that's got one entrance out and out exit, and fire goes up in there. It's bad. I can't believe that the fire people would say yes to a plan. That's my biggest concern. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. With that, would the applicant like to come back? Wendy, would you like to come back and close? Oh, Chris is on sprint mode. Thanks, Chris.
Mr. Chair, Chris wants you to know he's got his step counter on too.
I love it. He's running fast.
Chairman, Commissioners, I wanted to wrap up a few points, and also I have the actual developer has been on Zoom and online, and Eric Piliagard, wanted to have a chance to testify and address a couple of the questions that came up, and I wanted to clarify the ownership issue. The property is currently owned by an entity in Idaho Falls. My client, who my contract is with, is actually the developer who's intending to purchase the property. He does not own the property now. It's owned by an entity in Idaho Falls. My client has an option on the property and would like to purchase the property. But with that, I want to let Eric Piliagard, who is a developer of Little Creek, the Enclave, he wanted to have a chance to answer a couple of questions. And then I want to have an opportunity to wrap up after that. So if we can get Eric online, he should be on there.
He's ready to go. He just needs to unmute himself.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Eric, go ahead and state your name and your address for the record, please, and you're good to go.
Perfect. Eric Piliagard, 10981 Olana Drive, Truckee, zip code 96161. I want to thank the commissioners and actually everybody that's testified as part of the record, but I want to illustrate a few key points that when we design this and we also design the other project, what is important to know is that we're designing this for family members. So we have no studio units, we have no 1-bedroom units. The entire project is made up of both 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units for families. We create our own park on site with the swimming pool, the clubhouse, barbecue features, and that's where they get to enjoy their community. The reason we selected this site from the previous owner is due to its location, its proximity to the intersection, main arterial. Single family homes are somewhat less desirable when you have a large intersection like that of 36 homes for home ownerships. So we're giving the community an option for if they don't want to purchase a home there, but they can definitely rent and lease a home there. Up to a year or 2 years are standard for some of our contracts. As we all know, the Redenbach Canal is a dry feature come October until springtime. We agree that we should enhance that because it is a nice feature. Someone talked about fencing and so forth. We would probably do some type of wrought iron fencing to protect that quality of a feature. Our intersection across from the project, we are happy to match the island design for the crossing. We were told to locate it there because we're roughly 1,000 feet from the Meridian intersection. So a lot of the concerns about a left turn in and a right turn, they're fairly mitigated due to that distance from that intersection. And that was approximate distance that Wendy had provided. That's almost a quarter mile from the Meridian Road. We're kind of bound by ACHD and the traffic for what they tell us to do. We don't try to dream these things up. We try to build a good quality development that will represent the community for years going forward. As far as home values and pricing, these units for rental, or actually I should say lease to family members in the range of about $1,500 a month. That's not cheap for the kind of quality developments that we try to do for the community. And we've been very, very successful on the Enclave project. And just for the record as well, the Enclave project has 2 entrances, one on Wilson and one on Locust Grove, just for the record. As it relates to the access and ingress, all these units have fire sprinklers, which is a new building code in the city of Meridian for these types of projects. So every home, every unit has a fire sprinkler in it. And the fire department did require that emergency access if ever needed. So that wanted to clarify that response. We're located on a major arterial. And we feel that it's a very, very good location for some new community members to enjoy Meridian. I want to just thank Wendy for all of her time and effort, and I want to thank staff for doing the research on the schools, on the traffic, that we fall within the guidelines for that. We wouldn't consider going forward with the project if we didn't have staff's approval. And they've worked diligently, and we've worked diligently with them, and Wendy has as well, to build a very good community. So I just wanted to kind of close and say thank you for your patience, and we hope you support the Victory Project going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric. And if I can get a couple more minutes, I just wanted to address some of the audience comments and do a little bit of a wrap up. I know we had a lot of discussion on traffic this evening. I wanted to read a section of the ACHD staff report and kind of emphasize where we're at in the planning process. So these are from the ACHD site-specific conditions of approval. And prior to listing their conditions, which are general, they have this statement. This application is for annexation only. Site-specific conditions of approval will be established as part of the future development application. So I'm reading that because I want to emphasize that's where we're at in the process. Right now, we are applying for annexation, we have a concept plan, and we're applying for our zoning. But ACHD, which is our agency which dictates our traffic and how we're going to pay for our traffic impacts, how we're going to construct this project and deal with traffic in the neighborhood, that's their recommendation, that this application is annexation only, and that the site-specific conditions will be established as part of a future development application. So I just sort of wanted to clarify that. I know we had a lot of discussion on traffic this evening. Again, what we're applying for with our comprehensive plan designation, previously, prior to your comp plan change, in Meridian, you could actually request a step up. If you had medium density residential, you could go in and, as part of your zoning, request a step up through the comprehensive plan for R15. That provision has gone away. I don't think it's a bad thing, but that's gone away in Meridian. And what we're requesting is essentially what had been a step up under your previous comprehensive plan. The current property owner, who's based in Idaho Falls, basically was left out of the comprehensive plan update. They weren't aware that the process was undergoing. They own a number of properties all over the country, and they missed out on the comp plan update. So that was not my client, but that's the current property owner missed out. I know I have several property owners I wrote letters for when they were undergoing the comp plan update, and they missed out on that part of the process. But I think when we look at this area and whether it makes sense to have this comprehensive plan designation, again, we're on a principal arterial on Meridian Road. We are across the street from R15 multifamily. We have light office to the north. Across the street on the corner, we have a commercial land use, and we are providing a buffer, essentially an R15 and R8 buffer, where we're adjoining single family. So I think what we're proposing this evening absolutely makes sense, and we'll work through the details in regards to traffic planning with that conditional use permit. And once we have our TIS and ACHD can assess what our impacts are on the neighborhood. So I know we had a couple questions about fire, which we did address. We will have sprinklers in all units, and we will have a secondary access point for emergency access only. We had a number of neighbors who brought up questions regarding where the data on the schools had come from or from the traffic. This data is all reported from agencies. That school data came from the West Data School District, and the assessment on the current level of service Victory Road came from Ada County Highway District. So this is not reported by the developer. These are from agencies as a part of the application process. And their links to that were provided through the staff report. So we definitely are here this evening looking for approval. I'm here for any additional questions. And in regards to the impact fees and kind of how that works, with a TIS that's submitted to ACHD, and that's required to be submitted to the Highway District, prior to even making an application for conditional use permit or plat, City of Meridian. That document will be used to assess what our traffic impacts are and what fees we're gonna pay for the impacts. So that it's not a fine, they have an equation for it, and it's a cost of doing business. And it's assessed through Ada County Highway District or additional impact fees paid to the City of Meridian also. But I'm here for any additional questions, and again, we're hoping for a favorable recommendation.
Thanks, Wendy. Questions for the applicant? Currently. I appreciate your clarification on the highway or the ACH piece too. I want to make sure we get that clear. Any questions for Wendy at this time? Okay, thank you, Wendy. We appreciate it greatly.
Okay, and Chairman, Commissioners, again, during your discussion, if you have any questions, I'm happy to come up and discuss things. Thank you.
So just to clarify, Wendy, when we close the public hearing, that's kind of the end of it. So we'll make sure nobody has questions before we close the public hearing.
Okay.
Any questions for staff or for the applicant before we close the public hearing?
PM Schneido, I'm online. I have a question. I just want to make something clear.
Sorry, Mr. Schneido, we the time for public testimony is over.
Okay, sorry.
Team, anything we need to talk about with staff? If not, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Either way, you guys want to move forward.
Mr. Chair, I move we close the public hearing and move to deliberation.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close public hearing for file number H2020-0065. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Mr. Holland, that mean you want to lead off or?
Not necessarily, but I guess I can.
I'm happy to lead off if you want to, because I have some initial thoughts if you guys want me to go first.
Why don't you go ahead, Mr. Chair? I'll go second.
Okay. So I kind of laid this out for Wendy a little bit. I have concerns about that area and the road, and I know we have to make sure we stick to comprehensive plan and code and those kinds of things. But these are one of those things where I think we may be getting into a hornet's nest of a traffic problem that is a safety issue, which is part of code and part of our comprehensive plan issues. One of the biggest things I have is we just finished the comprehensive plan and the future land use map process, and we literally just did it. I think the council approved it. It was less than a couple months ago. It's recent, and when we're asking the public to give us feedback and then go through that long of a process and spend taxpayer dollars to do it, and then immediately we respond with a comprehensive plan and future land use map change, I have a challenge with that. That's my biggest concern, is we just went through this process, and I'm sorry we missed the date, or the person involved in the process was not part of it, but I think it's a challenge when we set this process forward and we give everybody certainty about what we're trying to build there, and 2 seconds later we immediately try to amend it. And so that's my biggest heartburn with this, in addition to the snarled area that area seems to already be surrounding. I think the two neighborhoods emptying out onto that spot and then having no direction for the SIP to actually have traffic, or that road to be widened, or an answer for that road until after 2030, that's not an okay situation, at least in my opinion. So would love to hear others, and again, I'm always up for being swayed other ways, but this is a concern for me.
Mr. Chair. I had the opportunity to sit on the the committee that reviewed the comprehensive plan, and I know it's an involved process. They were working on it for a long time, and I would echo your same comments. It's really tough to come back with a newly adopted plan and make changes to it. Certainly understand the applicant's desire there, and I know that it's a really tough piece of property. For me, when I look at planning, and from my experience, yes, I agree that multifamily works really well along high traffic corridors, but it's also got to have a combination of several other things that go with that. One being that there's walkability to neighboring services, that there's safety of pedestrian pathways, those kind of things. So, you know, what we've done with 10 Mile makes sense for a lot of that, but in this specific area, if it was on a different intersection that was tied to Meridian Road, it could be a possibility to work there. But I have a lot of concerns with that access road coming into the neighborhood. Same reasons you just stated as well. It's one thing to say it's right in, right out, but there are going to be people, what would probably happen if they actually put a median in the road is that people are all going to go up and turn right on Stoddard and do an illegal U-turn and come back. So I think that we would be creating some strain on some of our other neighboring properties that are around it. I appreciate the concept of the conceptual plan of the multifamily development that they presented to us. I think it looks like a great concept for somewhere in Meridian, but that specific piece of property to me is a challenge.
Comments, Commissioner McCarville?
Yeah, I would agree with what's been going on. I mean, that was, you know, my question to the applicant, right? There's just, that road just does not work. I understand, I mean, any other place, I'd probably be okay with it, of doing just a little bit of an upset, because being in a medium density already, I mean, they could go in there and put a whole bunch of skinny, you know, R8 housing in there with some pocket parks, and, you know, that would fall in there, and that's not always desirable either. So the concept in general, you know, I like, it's just that corner and that access there, we're just asking for trouble, to have people lining up there to take a left, because I know I avoid that intersection. If I've got to go west, I will go Overland or Amity every time. And I agree. I mean, we did just do this comprehensive plan, and I'm sorry that the owner lives somewhere else, but it was not a short process. This was 2 years in the making. There was plenty of time if they were interested. That's my thought. I think that whole section of road is a no-go. That, I mean, the only way I would be remotely in support of it is if it was conditioned that it had to go to 3 lanes upon occupancy. I mean, I think that's part of why we're here. You know, there's the dotting the I's and crossing the T's of a project, but then there's the common sense to it as well. And we know how that, I mean, that road is just, it's already dangerous.
Mr. Chair, one more comment I forgot to make. So I know that one of the last applications we looked at that was close to this curve, I think we just reviewed it in our last meeting or the one before. They had a challenge with having enough frontage in front of the Reidenbach Canal to even do sidewalks off of Victory. And so having connectivity for pedestrian access, it scares me on that corner for sure, especially when you've got a lot of residential and you're having a dog park and, you know, trying to encourage people to walk and bike. And I just don't think it's the right spot for a dense project.
I'm with you on that. I mean, I think there's, and you know me, I like density on hard corners, especially on major highways. I think that it makes sense there. I think there's just pieces of this that don't add up, and it's that property to the west seems like it needs to be brought into this discussion before we can, or master plan, so that the route going forward and where it ends up on Victory Road are all taken care of. And so that's my challenge with this program. And I think they did a great job of laying out. I know it was a lot of work from staff and a lot of work from the applicant. And so it's not that I don't like the project itself. I don't like the piece of property that we're trying to fit it into. So additional
agree.
comments?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Grove.
I'll echo a lot of what people have said. I too am in favor of density and diversification of housing in all the neighborhoods to give neighborhoods a balance, and also having the density, you know, close to major arterials. The lack of like projection on where this road is, with Victory is going to be with ACHD and when, really concerns me in trying to put this in. I also like, you know, the layout for the most part, but I feel like the project ends up being an island and doesn't improve connectivity in any way. And that concerns me moving forward, just with, in terms of how integrated it becomes with the rest of the neighbors. And then also just anytime we have, you know, larger developments in South Meridian, schools are a major concern for me. And, you know, maybe with COVID changing how schools, you know, end up being enrolled and whatnot, might make some changes. But for now, you know, I have some major concerns with how that starts to impact the schools, and not having necessarily a roadmap on how to get out of that in the short term is also concerning. But I have a lot of concerns with the project, where it is and when it is.
Mr. Grove. Mr. Seal, do you have some thoughts?
Yes, I do.
Go right ahead.
A lot of it, I'll echo a lot of what you know, other commissioners and the public have already stated. I mean, one thing that I'll say, because I always try and speak to some of the positive in here. I like the layout that they came out with. I like that they're trying to, you know, essentially blend in with the R8 style housing features that are there, with the you know, adjacent properties and things like that. I do agree that with as much of this property on the canal, that I just don't see that they made the canal a feature. I mean, it has a walking path next to it, but I think that a lot more could have been done with that. You know, again, the traffic concerns and all that are very valid. I mean, it's almost worthy of, you know, more communication with ACHD, in my opinion. I mean, I think if ACHD is going to continue to hand down that it's adequate, and we're going to come back that it's not adequate, then that leaves this piece of property landlocked, you know, at an impasse. So I don't think that's fair to, you know, a person that's going to try and develop it, or a landowner that is, you know, basically incapable, or, you know, can't sell their land to be developed, because, you know, like we all know, there's a large demand out there for this. So I was a little disappointed that when I asked the question of R8, that the answer was no. That's unfortunate, because I mean, at this point, without the ability to, you know, come back and kind of reduce the density and trying to work on some things like that, then I'm at a point of denial on it. And so I was going to say, Wendy's got her hand up, but public hearing is closed. So.
Mr. Chair, Wendy is asking if she can request to be recognized.
Commission, I don't have a problem but I'm not going to get into a back and forth, Wendy, in regards to how we're going to move forward. If you want to do something that's going to be significant, that's fine, but we're not going to debate the project in the middle. So if it's okay with the commission, we'll open it back up to let Wendy have some comments, if that's okay with you all. Any concerns?
Mr. Chair, I think we would have to vote to reopen the public hearing if we were going to hear
Yeah,
from her.
agreed. That's my, and that's up to the commission. I can't reopen it, so I've got to have a motion and a second and a vote. So. With that, Wendy, I'm sorry. I think we've already closed public hearing, so we appreciate it. Let us keep deliberating and we'll see where we go. And I can't hear her, so. Additional comments or thoughts? Commissioner Steele, I really appreciated I do agree with you on the R8. I think, again, there's some issues with regards to how they're going to exit that place without having a secondary access still for me. And I know that's not an easy fix right now, and they're not going to get access to Meridian Road. So I think without some secondary access or a master planning with the neighborhood or the neighbor next door or that road being widened, it's very difficult to move forward, at least with a current plan. But always up for additional comments.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Holland.
My last comment is I know right now we're not looking at the concept plan. We're not looking at the multifamily. They would have to come back to us with whatever that request is later. Yep. We're solely looking at the request for a comp plan change and for the annexation. And in my opinion, from what we've heard tonight, all of the things that we've deliberated, those two things, regardless of how the site plan would lay out, would cause the same challenges regardless of what layout they come back to us with for an R15 zone. So I don't know if we're ready for a motion for that, but I certainly could try to throw something out there. And yeah, I want to say I think that the team has done a great job, and I know the firm did a nice job putting together a great layout that we think is, could be an exemplary concept for a multifamily project. I think it's just a tough piece of land in the area, and I hope that they can find another piece to do this concept better and in a different spot.
Mr. Chair,
and they can certainly still try to take this forward to council.
Yep, absolutely.
Go ahead.
It's a recommendation only, so they have an opportunity to go present it to council, and maybe there's the people who get paid the big bucks and I give them bad time, but the ones that have their names on a ballot and are not appointed volunteers get to make the judgment calls. We're here to make sure that it meets code and comprehensive plan and those kinds of things. And we just went through a comp plan, and that's kind of where I come from. But Commissioner Grove.
Mr. Chair, I was just gonna say one last thing in terms of, if they could answer some of the things moving forward in terms of connectivity, it would make the project a lot easier to discuss. So I think they have to address that in some way, shape, or form at some point.
Appreciate that, Mr. Grove. Mr. Steele.
Yeah, and on that, I mean, we're, again, I don't hate to beat up on ECHD. I do it all the time, but I mean, that's the impasse that we're at, is basically, I think without the traffic improvements, then this piece of property is going to be a no for almost anything that would want to try and develop there because of the safety issues involved. Like Commissioner Holland, I believe it was Commissioner McCarville brought up that, I mean, in the last application that we looked at, I mean, they couldn't even build a sidewalk along the road because of where the canal is and how closely the road is to it. So trying to have, adequate turn lanes in there for this is something that's just, I mean, there's almost no way they can possibly do it with the amount of land that's around it, with the canal placed where it is. So, again, whatever we send to City Council, hopefully we can phrase it in such a way that encourages them to, have staff work with ACHD in order to provide some kind of solution so that we can hopefully move forward with this plot of land in the future.
I appreciate that. And I think, I think that's very, very good counsel. Commissioner Holland, did you have a motion or a thought that you wanted to move forward with?
I could certainly throw one out there, and I would just make the comment too that, you know, if they wanted to work with that landowner that has the 5 acres and see if there's some way to connect in with that other neighborhood and do a more mixed use concept there that would fit better, I think it'd be an easier concept to look at. But even still, I think the R15 is going to be a stretch for them on the site and the comp plan change. So with that, after considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend denial to City Council file number H-2020-0065 as presented during the hearing of August 20th, 2020 for the following reasons: that the city just adopted a new comprehensive plan and we feel it's too soon to make significant changes, that there are some roadway challenges that don't seem to be in the immediate future for reconciliation with ACHD and Victory Road, and that we believe that the density might be too high for the surrounding uses.
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second to recommend denial of file number H-2020-0065 Victory Apartments. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Appreciate the work of the team on this, and we will move on to the next item on the agenda. And thank you to the public for your participation this evening. We really appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is the public hearing for Pearson subdivision, H-2020-0075, and we'll start with Joe and the staff report.
Mr. Chair,
Go right ahead.
we do a quick break while the room empties out.
Yep, that sounds great. We'll take a 5-minute bio break and we'll be back in 5 and be prepped for the next discussion. Thank you. Commissioner Seal, let us know when we're ready to go again. Are we ready to proceed, or I see most of us.
Hey, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am. Go right ahead.
I was just gonna say on this next application, I don't think it's really a conflict, but obviously I work for the city of Kuna and represent their economic development efforts. And I just wanted to note that this piece is on the boundary between Meridian and Kuna. It shouldn't be a problem because it's on the Meridian side of the boundary that we just adjusted with Meridian, but I just wanted to make that comment in case anyone had a concern there.
No concerns on my end, but
I can act.
I appreciate your comment and disclosure. Anybody have any
Chair, we're
concerns?
ready in chambers as well.
Okay. Does anybody have any concerns on Commissioner Holland continuing to stand on this one? Hearing none, we will proceed forward. Mr. Seal, thank you for the break idea. That was great. So we'll open the public hearing on 2020-0075 Pearson subdivision. And Joe, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can everybody hear me all right? Okay. No objections, so let's move forward. This project before you consists of 3.98 acres of land currently zoned R4 and specifically located at 175 West Painthorse Lane. To the west and south is City of Kuna area of impact, as just discussed, and directly to the east and north is existing R4 City of Meridian zoning. Uses appear to be county residential in all directions and or some agricultural land. The subject application is proposing to subdivide one 4-acre lot into 2 lots for the purposes of allowing the current owner of the parcel to deed the new lot over to her daughter so that her and her family are close by. And this does include helping raise Mrs. Pearson's newborn child, or soon to be. The subject property was annexed in 2015 as part of a larger annexation known as South Meridian. There is an existing development agreement associated with the original annexation and this property, and this application constitutes development under city code. In reviewing the existing DA, the applicant needs to apply for a development agreement modification prior to the city council hearing for this combined preliminary final plat. Per the existing DA, the first modification is at no cost to the applicant. The reason why they did not apply with one with this was, frankly, a staff oversight. I originally told them that they did not need to, and after reviewing the DA in more detail, the existing DA, I had found that they do, in fact, need to apply for one. The subject application has also received City Engineer and Public Works Director approval for a utilities waiver to not connect to city services at this time due to services being more than a half-mile away. Staff finds that making a singular property owner pay for extending city services for a 2-lot subdivision is neither fair nor necessary at this time. Central District Health has also approved for an additional temporary well site and septic system. This fact further diminishes any concern staff has with the applicant's application regarding water and sewer services. As noted, there is an existing single-family home on the subject property that is not connected to city services. This property, along with nearby properties, again, was annexed in 2015, and they were not required to connect to city services at that time because services were not available. This situation has not changed for this area of South Meridian. However, when services do become available in Meridian Road, the applicant will be required to connect to them as conditioned in this application and in the existing DA. Access to this development is proposed via an existing private lane, West Painthorse Lane. ACHD is not requiring any public road dedication due to the access not being changed. The subject application does not warrant a public road or road improvements at this time, according to ACHD. In accord with the existing access, UDC 11-3H-4 requires that if an existing state highway access has an increase in intensity that is to be removed upon development or dedicated to ACHD
and be constructed as noted on the master street map. Paint Horse Lane is shown as a future collector roadway on the master street map, but the addition of one single-family home does not warrant the construction of a collector roadway at this time. With the DA modification the applicant needs to apply for prior to City Council, new DA provisions will address this and ensure any future development meets the required development standards. Staff and ACHD find that the existing private access is sufficient for one additional single-family home. Because other abutting properties are not redeveloping at this time, there is no feasible way for the applicant and owner to comply with those requirements in 11-3H and take access from anywhere else. In addition, adding one home does not create sufficient traffic to warrant construction of a collector roadway. However, staff understands that should any more intensive redevelopment occur on site or on those surrounding properties, the access will need to be evaluated for compliance with these requirements. Staff is recommending DA provisions be added with DA modification application that requires a future collector street consistent with the master street map if or when this or adjacent properties redevelop with more intense uses consistent with the mixed-use regional future land use designation that exists in this area, as noted. I didn't put that one in there, but the whole area around here is mixed-use regional future land use. To summarize, the subject application is proposing to subdivide a 4-acre lot, into 2 lots for the purposes of allowing the current owner of the parcel to deed the new lot over to her daughter. Staff does not find that the city loses anything by approving this application and understands that this area may not redevelop for quite some time. Staff recommends approval of the subject preliminary final plat for the conditions of approval in the staff report, and I will stand for questions.
Thanks, Joe.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Seal. Commissioner Seal, go right ahead.
There we go. A couple questions for staff, well, they're related questions. Just for the, is there a time frame, an approximate time frame when services will be available to the area? If so, what would their proximity be, and what's the cost to attach to city services?
Commissioner Seal, members of the commission, the closest services are about a mile away up Meridian Road right now. I do not know the costs for that. Unfortunately, that was not part of the discussion. Public Works has not told me that, or the applicant. Development-wise, it is coming, but it's not coming very quickly in this specific area. As you've probably seen with other development, and you can see on our plan development map here, this is approximately square half a mile, and there's nothing within that right now. So I would assume that it's going to be years before services are close by.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Joe.
Mr.
Any
Chair,
additional, Commissioner Holm.
if it's helpful for Commissioner Seal's question, I know we estimate in other cities that it takes about $1 million per mile for extending services. So it would be a significant chunk, especially up a major corridor. If that helps.
Any additional questions for staff? Commissioner Seal, did you have any follow-up?
Just the question was more based around the property owner. I mean, they're looks like they're going to sink a significant investment into the second property to put a well in there, and if even in the next 5 years, city services get to that and they're required to establish connectivity to that at a cost, then I just want to make sure that the property owner is well aware that that is actually something that could happen sooner rather than later, and that there is probably a pretty big cost associated with it.
Appreciate that input, and I think that's a great call. Eyes wide open is always better. Any additional questions for Joe? Would the applicant like to join us either online or in person?
Mr. Chair, the applicant is online, and Melanie, if you want to unmute yourself, you can have the floor after stating your name and address.
Hi, Melanie Pearson, 1717 North 7th Street, Boise 83702. I don't have any additional comments.
Ms. Pearson, did you everything that kind of Commissioner Seal put forward, you guys are aware, as you're drilling a well or putting a secondary well in, there could be sewer and water at your door down the road, not very long, and you guys are aware of that, right?
We are aware, yes.
Any questions for the applicant? And Ms. Pearson, you guys were all in agreement with the staff report, correct? There was no concerns you had?
Correct, we're in agreement.
Okay, perfect. No questions for the applicant? Perfect. With that, Ms. Pearson, thank you for being a part of tonight. And we'll probably close public hearing and hopefully get this wrapped up quickly. Is there a motion out there to close the public hearing?
Mr. Chair,
Oh yeah, we do need to see if there's public. Sorry.
I just wanted to note there is no public testimony for this
Thank you.
project. You're welcome.
I didn't see anyone in the audience. I think Commissioner Seal and you guys are alone now. And I didn't see anybody on the attending side. So thank you for clarifying. I was trying to go too fast. With that, there being no public testimony and there's nobody online that wants to raise their hand, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing on H 2020-0075 Pearson subdivision. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Any comments, concerns, thoughts?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner McCarville.
I would be in support of this. I don't see any issues with it. We're not adding much of anything, except the one house. So I just don't see a problem with it. They're going in eyes open. So of when utilities might be there. So
I'm with you. I think if we were in other cities around the valley, this would be a lot line, a one-time split and not a development. So we don't have that function in Meridian, but I know Boise and Eagle do that. CUNA may as well, but this is just a family carving up their land for their family. So I have no problem with this, and with them being aware that they're that hook up when the sewer gets there and water gets there, then I think we're good to go. Additional comments or motions? Commissioner Seal.
I'll take a stab at the motion here. So after considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval to the City Council of file number H 2020-0075 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of August 20th, 2020.
second.
I have a motion and a second to recommend approval of file number H 2020-0075 Pearson subdivision. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all very much. Ms. Pearson, good luck. We hope your process goes well. Opening up the final item on our docket tonight is Modern Craftsman at Black Hat, file number H 2020-0022. You all may recall, and I think most of us, if not all of us, were here this game before us before. What we requested at that time was that any testimony that is brought, we focus in on the commercial side on the requests that we made, the changes in the requests that we brought, or we requested the continuance for. So we'll hopefully keep that narrow this evening. If there is any public testimony, we'd like to keep it narrow and to the changes that were made to the project. So with that, let's start with the staff report and I'll turn it back to Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as Mr. Chair had said, this is continued from the July 9th hearing, and it was for the purpose of the applicant to review the amount of proposed commercial on their site. So I don't want to rehash everything, but I will do just a brief overview of the project again, and then I'll go into what they did change. So the applications that are being applied for are rezone, short plat, a DA mod, conditional use permit, and then for staff side of it, private streets and administrative design review. The site consists of approximately 23.5 acres with existing CC and R15 zoning located at the northeast corner of Black Cat and Chinden Boulevard. Adjacent land uses are R4 and R8 to the north, CN zoning and future church site to the east. Chinden Boulevard abuts the site to the south with residential and a small portion of LO on the south side of Chinden. North Black Cat abuts the site to the west with CC zoning and future commercial planned on the west side of Black Cat, north of Chinden. The future land use designation out here is mixed use community. So, the changes that were made since the commission hearing on July 9th were concerning the limited amount of commercial development that was proposed as part of the project. In response, the applicant has submitted revised plans to planning staff, which has resulted in a number of recommended changes to the conditions of approval and development agreement. Some of the main points are as follows. The CC zoning increased from 2.2 acres to 4.2 acres and now includes that area containing the clubhouse. The clubhouse incorporates offices that residents may rent out and use for their home businesses or meetings, adding approximately 1,000 square feet of leasable space. The applicant added 5,070 square feet of vertically integrated commercial square footage for the building here, which is along Black Cat. The corner commercial building on the southwest corner here is proposed as a two-story structure in this site plan with parking below the first level of one half of the building. The two-story variation allows the building to have up to 19,450 square feet of commercial space, which staff fully supports versus a one-story concept. The total commercial square footage proposed for the site is now approximately 27,000 square feet. With the increase in commercial square footage, staff finds the site can accommodate smaller scale, more neighborhood-serving commercial uses to serve area residents as discussed as discussed and envisioned by the comp plan and discussed with public testimony at the previous hearing. The applicant did respond to my staff memo with a request to remove one of the recommended conditions of approval regarding the corner commercial lot being 2 stories only, not the 1-story concept. Staff does recommend approval of the requested applications still with the DA provisions and the updated conditions of approval in my staff memo. And I will stand for questions.
So thank you very much. Are there any questions for the staff?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Grove, go ahead, sir.
Joe, so let me just, that last point that you made, they want to have it removed from the condition, but still build 2 stories? Is that what they're asking? I guess I was confused on that last piece.
Commissioner Grove, I apologize. So one of my requested or recommended new conditions is to require that this corner building be built as 2 stories, and the applicant would request that that condition be removed so that they can choose whether 1 story or 2 stories is appropriate.
Thank you for that information, Joe. Commissioner Seal or Commissioner Grove, did you get everything you needed? Yeah, Commissioner Seal, go ahead.
I had the same exact question. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Chair.
Joe, go ahead.
Just to something that I did forget to mention, with the increase in the CC zoning, there is an automatic 25-foot buffer between uses. So between the CC zoning and the residential R15 zone that may create an issue between the clubhouse and this area here. That is something that I did not know in my review. It is likely something that the applicant can request a reduction in from City Council, but I did want to put that on the record that that is something that they will have to do moving forward, going to City Council.
Thank you for that clarification as well. If I don't see any questions, additional questions for Joe, is the applicant ready for us? Hello. Welcome back, and please state your name and your address for the record, please. And the floor is yours.
Mr. Chair, I think they're just loading a presentation.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Deborah Nelson. My address is 601 West Bannock Street in Boise. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant. Tonight with me, Matt Riggs, Jeff Riggs, and Greg Hector of Barron Properties, as well as our planner, Kent Brown. I'm going to make a very brief presentation, and then we are all available to answer any questions you may have. Starting with our updated site plan, in response to the Commissioner's comments that we heard at the last hearing, we've provided these updated plans to expand the CC zone and add new commercial and mixed uses. Just in the briefest of overviews, since Joe just covered this, we extended the CC zoning north along Black Cat. We removed the townhomes that had been there along Black Cat and replaced them with a new vertically integrated product. We kept the commercial pop-up and we redesigned the commercial corner lot. The resulting CC zone size is 4.23 acres, up from 2.26 acres. We received a comment letter just today into the record from a neighbor questioning about the uses that are within or outside of the CC zone. It's specifically asking about the dog park and the clubhouse, so wanted to address that. The dog park is actually outside of the CC zone that we've proposed. The clubhouse is inside of that zone. Both of those uses could be in. The CC zone allows and encourages a variety of uses, including allowing with a conditional use permit multifamily residential. As a result, all of the uses that we are proposing with this development could occur without a rezone application. The reason we have a rezone application is really an outgrowth of early discussions with staff before we filed the application, where city staff had a preference to reduce the CC zone to circumscribe the principally non-residential uses. And we were fine with that. With this change and the request to add more opportunity for commercial uses, we have kept that same theme where we have drawn the CC line around the principally non-residential uses. The location of the clubhouse was also an outgrowth of our discussions with staff. Through iterations of the site plan, staff requested that we move the clubhouse to this location so that it creates better integration with our commercial uses. It's really oriented around the plaza that they also encourage, and we really like the result of that layout as well. The comment letter that was received today also questioned the size of this CC zone. At the last hearing, there was a fair amount of commentary about this, and Commissioner Holland, you suggested that 4 to 5 acres would allow multiple uses to site in one location, creating positive synergy between them. We have created exactly that space for not only multiple uses, but a variety of uses. We have space for 6 live-work units, 4 pop-up units, plus the corner commercial lot with a building that can accommodate multiple commercial uses as well. So this isn't just more commercial space now, it's also innovative space that can incorporate a number of different types of users. We provided renderings for each of these spaces, and I just want to walk through and show some of them. Starting with the main entry and the clubhouse. As you enter the main entry, you come right upon the clubhouse. This provides extensive amenities for our residents. Specific to the discussion tonight, those amenities include over 1,000 square feet of office space, including 3 enclosed offices that can be reserved for a fee and used for meeting space by our residents. So an architect or an attorney or anyone who decides that they want to work at home also has space where they can go and meet a client. In addition, in this clubhouse, but not included in our 1,000-foot office space that we described, are the offices for our employees. We added a new vertically integrated residential product along Black Cat with 6 units and over 5,000 square feet of usable ground floor commercial space below the second-story residential. It has an attractive facade to both Black Cat and the internal site as well. We anticipate longer-term leases here than in the pop-up commercial that we'll discuss next. Could even accommodate larger users if they want more than one bay. Across the landscaped plaza from both the clubhouse and that vertically integrated building, we have our commercial pop-up building that has 4 units and 2,500 square feet of commercial space. We call this a pop-up commercial because it allows a variety of smaller commercial uses, but don't mistake this for a temporary structure. This is a permanent building, not a booth at a Saturday market. It's the uses that are pop-up. We have envisioned short-term leasing with something perhaps as short as a weekend event or a month-long exhibition or seasonal uses or perhaps startups, such as for a restaurant that wants to try out new concepts. Or Commissioner Steele, you suggested something along the lines of BSU's think tank or a business generator. These are the types of exciting uses that we think could site here in this building. And then we have our commercial corner. We redesigned this corner based on feedback at the last hearing raised by staff and the commissioners about parking. We also proposed building concepts to illustrate how this site can create a striking commercial presence on this signalized corner while also opening up and integrating internally to the site. We proposed 2 concepts, a single-story and a 2-story. The amount of usable commercial space between those 2 concepts doesn't actually vary very much. And the reason is because the additional second story requires additional parking that then in turn eats up some of the space. We've designed this nicely to incorporate some of that parking underneath so that you don't end up with a sea of surface parking. The resulting range between the 2 options is 13,000 to 19,500 square feet. Here you can see the single-story concept as well. And now I'd like to ask the clerk to pause here and we could play a video that got proposed. At our last hearing, we saw a fly through the whole project, and now we've got a fly through just of this CC zone area and as updated with this submittal.
Mr. Chair, Deb, Chris is pulling that up at his office desk, so he's going to share it as soon as he's able to pull it up, which looks like very momentarily.
Thank you.
Is it possible to play the sound?
Chris, we can't hear the sound.
Not a problem. It's just music.
Zoom challenges.
That's okay. Envision your favorite song playing now, commissioners. With that, Commissioners, we appreciated the comments that you made at the last hearing that were supportive of the overall layout here. We believe this expanded CC zone and the new features such as the vertically integrated residential product and the redesigned commercial corner lot have been responsive to comments. We appreciate staff's continued support and work on this. It's been a long process, and we appreciate everything they've done with us. We're in agreement with all of their recommended conditions except the one that Joe mentioned, the 1I, where we're just asking for flexibility to use either the one-story or the two-story concept on that corner so that we can respond to market conditions and demands. The Barron team is super excited to bring this unique community to Meridian. We ask for your approval tonight, and we would stand for any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. The quick question I have is, there's two actually. Start off. One is, I really like the two-story, and with, is there a reason where the latitude, I understand the market conditions, but I think we were asking for as much commercial space there as we could make work. And so including the clubhouse piece, and I know that you said there's offices in there, so I've got a couple questions around that. Is that kind of like a WeWork space, short-term leases? How do you make that work?
Chairman, great question. So the space inside the clubhouse could be very flexible. We anticipate that could be by the day, by the week, by the month, just as the demand warrants. And so if somebody just has a quick meeting they need to do with a client, they could accomplish that without reserving the space for an entire month. They may have a project that requires more time, and so they could reserve that and pay for it for longer.
Okay, that helps me there. And how many offices are in that space? It's 2, is that right?
Chairman, the space that we described in that 1,000 square feet, it's over 1,000 square feet, is 3 enclosed offices. In addition to that, we didn't even count the offices for our employees, which of course is appropriate within the CC zone as well because it's an employment base.
Okay, that helps me. And then the last question is, was there any thought of taking that live workspace, the live above commercial space all the way down Black Cat? Was that ever a consideration?
Chairman, I'll do my best to answer that, and these guys can tell me if there's more to it. I think that we fit really as much as was reasonable to fit there from a site plan standpoint with the roads and the utilities and the open space requirements. I think that was what made sense there. I think it also was an attractive facade feature trying to respond to comments about the neighbors about two-story along Black Cat. But also to provide a building that oriented well to the inside. And so I think there was a lot of balancing going on there.
Okay, and then any comment about the two, if we wanted to limit it just to two-story, would that be a concern to you guys? Because I think I really like that look, but I would, any thoughts on limiting it to only two-story and keeping that requirement in there? Is there, besides market conditions only?
Yeah, Chairman, thanks for the opportunity to comment on that. Certainly what we're here to ask for tonight is for your approval. And so if the commission is, set on approving it only with that condition, then we'd take that and like to proceed on to the council, and we understand. If you would consider removing that condition, we're asking for that for market flexibility. It really is, we want to make sure this is viable commercial that gets filled quickly and is actually used. We don't want to have a vacant lot. We want this to be useful and activated and have a real presence. And if the market is dictating a single story to accomplish that, then we want to be able to respond to that. Both buildings, we tried to design both buildings to create the same features we heard from you. There was discussion at the last hearing about asking for that corner presence that was visible from Chinden. And so we tried to create that dynamic with the signalized light there. We think that corner-shaped building provides a lot of opportunities. And then oriented to the site, either way, it looks really nice from the inside and can accommodate multiple uses. So with the range being from 13,000 to 19,500, you know, we're not talking about a significant change in the available square footage total for the site, but it gives us a whole lot of flexibility. So that's why we've asked. So appreciate the opportunity to comment on it.
Thank you very much. Andrea, I have one quick legal thing I forgot to disclose. I live in Spurwing, and I want to make sure my counterparts on the commission are aware, and if they would like, I feel like I can be impartial. I disclosed this at the last hearing, but I wanted to make sure I did it on this hearing too. So is there any concerns with me continuing to be a part of this process? Sorry, I should have said that earlier. I apologize for that.
No concerns.
Okay. Any commissioner concerns? Okay. Thank you. I just forgot to disclose it. I apologize to the applicant. I didn't disclose that earlier. Additional questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Seal.
Just a couple of questions on the leasable space that's within the clubhouse. Is that open to the public to lease, or is that only tenants?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Steele, those spaces within the clubhouse will be open to residents only.
Okay.
Just like in the live work building, there will be residential units that are just private spaces. There's a mix here.
And then the 25-foot buffer between the clubhouse and the residential space, how are you looking to address that?
I think we'll just have to work with our engineer and see how we can accommodate that. And if not, as Joe pointed out, I guess we'll be asking the council to address that. That was news we just learned this evening.
Okay, and then would that be, if they couldn't address it completely, would that be an alternative compliance?
Commissioner Steele, members of the commission, my understanding is that it is a waiver by City Council to reduce the required buffer. My opinion, if that matters in this instance, is that they would likely have a good case for that, considering it still mixes well, and the vertically integrated building isn't butting up against the residential. It's the existing clubhouse and the plaza that would have been there anyways. So, but that would be a waiver from City Council.
And follow up to kind of tie the whole thing together. So the clubhouse still qualifies as open space, or does it not qualify as open space because it's in the commercial portion of it?
Commissioner Steele, regardless of the zoning, the use, you have a good question. I believe it should still be open space. I did notice on the revised open space, they did count the commercial, what they're calling the pop-up, which is not qualifying because it's just commercial, but that's a small area compared to the clubhouse. But all that plaza and the clubhouse area should still count for open space.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I address that as well?
Go right ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. Commissioner Steele, that's right. It does still count as qualified open space and an amenity. And as I mentioned earlier, we didn't even need to rezone. That could have fallen within the CC zone earlier. That use would be appropriate there, and it still would qualify the same way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And Commissioner Steele, did you have any additional follow-up, or are you good?
I'm good, thank you.
Yep. Commissioner Holland, go right ahead, ma'am.
I don't know that I have any questions per se, but I do want to thank you for your consideration of our comments last time, and it looks like you've done some great work in increasing it. I'm much happier with the 4 to 5 acre commercial than I was with the 2 acres, so appreciate that. The only other thing I remember we talked about a little bit was the frontage off of Chinden, backing up to some of the residential units. And I know we're not really here to discuss the residential as much, but where there would be a break in fencing or berming to kind of open back up to that commercial. Can you talk about that transition a little bit?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Holland, we did preserve the community garden in that location to create that spacing between the commercial corner and the residential uses. And as far as the break, I may have to get some input on that. Is our berming consistent across? Okay. So it is consistent across, but we can place our trees carefully to make sure you've got visibility there, but also creating some buffers.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Mr. Chair,
Go right ahead.
I just wanted to, this is Joe Staff, I just wanted to clarify that as well. The berm would stop at roughly where that CC zoning begins and the residential stops.
Right.
The berm will not continue in front of the commercial buildings, just to be clear on that. And that is one, because of the zoning there, it does not require a berm along Chinden, but the residential does. And also that would defeat the purpose of the visibility that we would want for a commercial use on the corner as well.
Thank you, Joe. And Kent is nodding as well, so I just relayed that improperly.
Thank you for the clarification, both of you. That helps. Is there any additional questions for the applicant? Ma'am, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And if there's opportunity, if there's public testimony, we'll have you come back up and close. We'll let you close either way, but is there public testimony, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Chair, 2 people signed in online, one indicating a wish to testify, but I don't see them attending online, nor do I see them in the room.
Okay, if there is someone who would like to testify online, please raise your hand. I don't see any attendees currently. Is there anyone in the room that would like to testify? And give the high sign to Andy, Commissioner Seal.
No, nobody else in the room.
Okay. Mr. Brown's not coming to talk to us? Okay. Well, did you guys have any closing remarks that you'd like to make before we deliberate as a group?
Chairman, Commissioners, if I could, just a couple very quick comments. We appreciate your consideration of these plans, and as we said before, we feel like we've tried to be very responsive to the specific comments we heard. We also just want to remind you that the original support we had from staff was really looking at not just this site, but all of the surrounding commercial uses, and we think that they still are complementary of what we're providing here. So while we're bringing in all of these opportunities for neighborhood uses, neighborhood commercial and office uses, we still have, of course, the Fairborn across the street, the Central Valley Plaza down the street. We've got Costco nearby. We've got areas that are zoned and designated in your comp plan to have commercial and mixed use, even mixed use regional on the southwest corner of this site. So we've got the church, of course. We've got significant non-residential and commercial uses around you. So we've tried to find that balance again of trying to listen to what you wanted here, but also appropriately looking off-site as is called for in your comprehensive plan as well. So just those additional comments, and would stand for any other questions that you have.
Appreciate that. Is there any additional questions? Are there any additional questions? Seeing none, we so appreciate the input. Thank you so much. Can I get a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close public hearing on H 2020-0022, Modern Craftsman at Black Cat. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, team. Anybody want to lead off?
Mr. Chair, I'll jump in real quick.
Go ahead, Commissioner Grove.
I appreciate what they've done to make adjustments to this, and they listen to our feedback, and it looks a lot better, even from just a simple landscaping piece on that hard corner for Chinden and Black Cat. It looks better. I definitely would be in favor of keeping it 2 stories, just to really give more character, especially as people are driving down the highway in that section of town. And I think, I mean, as far as the 2 stories, it's to me almost as much aesthetics as it is function, to a certain extent. I think, you know, having more commercial space is great, but I think it makes it look a little bit more enticing for an overall project. But I appreciate them also doing the mixed use on Black Cat there. It's a good addition to their already interesting product. So.
Mr. Grove, I agree with your 2-story comments as well. I think it sets off that corner and makes it look, it appeals to me that in that hard corner to have a 2-story building with park underneath, and that's how I love park underneath. I think it's useful use of space. But Commissioner Seal, did you have a comment, or did I hear that incorrectly?
I can go ahead and go.
Okay, sorry. I thought I heard your voice.
That's okay. I mean, the project as a whole, I really like it. I like the concept that they came up with for the multifamily units that are there. And, you know, I know we've hashed that out, but I want to make sure that we, you know, I mean, to me, that's the really exciting part of it. You know, the commercial piece of it, I definitely, you know, your remarks about the parking that's underneath and as far as that being commercial space, I think somebody's going to gobble that up pretty quick with that parking being available there. You know, parking's always an issue, and if you take care of that right out of the gate, then somebody's going to come in there and want to grab that up for sure. So I do like the buffer that they have there with the community garden space, and you know, the rest of it as far as the 2-story, you know, with the ability to live above, I think that just as a product is probably going to be something that, you know, again, I think that's probably going to be picked up pretty quick. There's a lot of growth in the valley, a lot of entrepreneurs that are starting out, and they need space to grow. And so having the pop-up space that it can allow people to come in short term with the capability of having the 2-story spaces right across the parking lot from that, you know, I think that's going to create a lot of opportunity, and hopefully, you know, Meridian takes full advantage of that. And you know, I'd like to see the city kind of reach in and really bolster that for the communities, because it's going to help all of our numbers. So as far as, you know, providing a place to work for the people that live here, but overall, really, really nice project. I'm pretty impressed with the whole thing. So it's very out of the box overall, and what they've come back with is right along that path as well.
Mr. Chair.
McCarville.
Yeah, I would agree. I would want to see the 2-story stay. I know it doesn't add a ton of square footage commercial wise there, but it does add parking, which was one of the big issues on having the commercial on that corner on the last plan. And I do like the mix of what they're providing there is the pop-ups and that kind of thing. It's an interesting option, and one I think we're going to see used a lot in the future.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Hall, go right ahead.
I would echo a lot of the comments, and I don't need to deliberate much more on anything else. I appreciate that they listened to our comments last time and that they added some commercial space, and we're willing to try some innovative things. I think it's a product type and a mixed use type we don't have in Meridian. So it's nice that it's not just a bunch of fourplexes or a bunch of high towering structures that are all next to each other. I just appreciate that there's a little bit of breathing room in there. And it looks like a nice place for people to live and work and have amenities close by. So I think they've done a nice job. The only comment I would make is still the whatever the frontage looks like on Chinden. I just want to make sure that they do a good job of whatever that transition and buffer looks like, so that it's not just you're driving, you see a big burn wall, and then small little pocket where you see a building. But I think for that reason, I like the 2-story building there too, because I think it would help with the break there.
I echo exactly what you said. I think Commissioner Seal, well, everybody's comments I think are well taken. I think this is something that's outside the box. If I could, you know, have a perfect world, I would have taken that live work all the way down Black Cat, but that's just me. because I like those things. I think we don't have enough of them. We've done them in Boise in a couple of spaces, but not enough in Meridian. And I, much like Commissioner Seal said, I hope we grab onto some of these concepts that they brought and take it other places. I'm really tired of seeing pinwheel fourplexes. It makes me want to throw something. But the use of space, the modern look and feel, and really thinking of it and being a sense of place, bringing people together, having thought through how they might live, how they might work, and then giving a place for entrepreneurs to work, just like Commissioner Steele said, I think is rare in our community, and I think it needs to be utilized more. So huge kudos on that. I love the architecture and the plan for the layout, and it's not it's in a different kind of product that we need in this valley too. So huge kudos there. I really appreciate the work that went into it and for taking into account our thoughts. I'm partial to the live work stuff, but that doesn't mean I am opposed to anything. So.
Chair.
Commissioner Seal.
After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval of the City Council file number H2020-0022 as presented to the staff report for the hearing date of August 20th, 2020.
Can I make clarification before you do that?
Yes, sir.
Are you putting any stipulations on the 1-story or 2-story for that commercial space?
I would rather keep it in there as it's written by the staff.
Yeah, just want to make sure, because it's in there as staff report said. I just want to make sure we're all clear on that.
Yes.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chair,
Michelle.
in the memo from staff about some of the things they wanted to make sure we mentioned in motions, do we actually need to include that in the motion, or is that sufficient in the staff memo that we got about the updates?
I can amend the motion.
Joe, do we have to put anything additional and recommending anything additional that you have in the staff memo?
Mr. Chair, to be honest, I do not know if we need to specifically state those, or if you can just say as presented in the staff report and staff memo might be sufficient.
Yeah, I think that.
I'll amend it with along with the updated conditions of approval in the staff memo.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to recommend approval of file number H2020-0022, Modern Craftsman of Black Cat. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Cool, motion passes. Thank you all very much. That was a lot shorter than I actually expected it to be. So Barren Land or Barren Properties, good luck with that project. I look forward to seeing it when it's done. I'm gonna come get a lemonade stand over there. No, I'm joking. Okay, I need a last motion from our team here.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner McCarville.
before Commissioner Holland goes into labor, I move we adjourn.
Oh wait, yeah, we may not see her.
Yeah, I might not be
Commissioner
here for the next one. We'll see.
Yeah, I was gonna say I may need backup, Commissioner McCarville, for if we're lacking a vice chair. I mean the older. No, that doesn't sound good. The previous chair that I took direction from for a long time to step in their role at the beginning of September. I may have a conflict on the 3rd, and I may be out of town. So, and Commissioner Holland may go into labor.
Then we definitely have a quorum issue, because I'm out on the 3rd and Commissioner Fitzer is no longer with us. So
Yeah, there could be
We don't have to worry about the vacant seat counting towards quorum.
okay. So
Did you hear that?
So what is quorum then?
I'm still on mute. Is this better?
We have to have 4, right?
Yes. Yes. Well, we don't count the vacant seat. Why is it giving me? I don't know.
You'd still have to have 4
I thought
though.
I was supposed to use.
Yeah.
So can you hear me now?
To vote. Hi, Mr. Brown.
I did do the off thing, like I didn't sign on with the audio.
We don't have a second yet on the motion.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
We can still hear you.
We got sidetracked.
No, somebody that would be temporarily unmuted, but it echoes.
Yeah.
Let's talk through that, because and Commissioner Holland may be in a situation where she's not here and I am not here either.
There's a
So
chance they're still here, but it's going to be hard to predict.
I don't
that's a
think we
rough
need to take
gig,
that.
man. Who,
Okay, guys,
who
can
else
you
is
hear
going to
me?
be here? Are you guys all going to be able to be available?
Can you hear
if
me?
I am not on the
Can you-
3rd.
You're
I
not,
don't think
okay.
they can hear me.
I'm
We
not
can
there.
hear you,
We can hear
Andrea.
I can hear you, Andrea.
You can hear me
Yeah,
or not?
yes.
Yeah. Days, we don't count the vacancies. So 7, 6 would be for my agreement.
And I won't be here. This Commissioner Shields.
Okay,
Oh, we
Then we
don't have
definitely
a
have a
quorum.
quorum.
definitely do. We got
So
two
then
people.
we don't.
I'll be here by myself.
And
Mr.
possibly
Grove, it's all you,
Commissioner
ma'am.
Casanelli.
Mr. Chair, to clarify, that was no quorum on September 3rd, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I think you've got three and a half still in the, maybe Commissioner Holland might not be here, but I don't think you can plan on her. Commissioner McCarville's out, Commissioner Seal's out, and I'm 92% sure I'm out. So we may have to shift gears to a different date in September.
Okay.
Are you guys back the week after?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm
yeah,
more
yeah,
likely to be
yeah.
out the week after than I am on the 3rd.
That's yeah, you're definitely out for September, ma'am.
I don't think we get to count you for the next month.
Yeah,
Enough
exactly.
day
At least.
forward.
Madam Clerk, how do you want to handle this, ma'am?
Mr. Chair, with Andrea's direction, my opinion would be that since we have established there's not going to be a quorum on the 3rd, you can agree on a future date. I would recommend sooner rather than later after that date to meet and have a meeting. Now, if the next Thursday would be September 10th, but keep in mind if you're having a special meeting, it doesn't necessarily have to fall on the same day. It's just convenient because we plan for planning and zoning on Thursdays. But if it's not convenient for a quorum with the commission, then you can choose a different day that's more favorable for all your schedules.
Okay. Do you want to send out an email and see when everybody's available on those dates, around those dates? I'm definitely available on the 17th.
17th is regular meeting.
I think Bill usually will circulate an email and, let the planners talk, see which date they might be able to work with, and then they'll circulate it to you guys to see, if, float an option or two for you. I think Bill usually handles that.
Yeah, and I thought Bill was on the call earlier. I'm not sure if he heard this conversation. He's not there anymore. But I'm happy to send an email to reach out to him and let him know that we've got
I know Vice Chair Holland is a rock star and is going to try to being in labor and be a P&Z commissioner. I'm not going to work.
Those at the same
We're
time.
going to let her have a month off or so. So, goodness gracious.
I'm not going to let her do that.
I'll try to be present where I
And
can, but if I'm in the
Commissioners-
hospital, I'm not getting on the call.
I think she's going
And
to try to
Commissioners,
sit
so
here
you know,
for.
there will be. Sorry.
Go ahead.
4 public hearings that will have to be reconsidered or continued some date.
How many? 4.
Well, if you'll touch base with Mr. Parsons and let us know what we think will work, or circulate a poll or something like that where we can all be available, except Lisa, then we'll make a plan and we'll get us squared away for next month. And I apologize.
Will do, Mr. Chair.
I would just like to say Mondays and Tuesdays are hard for me. So if we do change days, I need to have it further out if we're going to make it on a Monday or a Tuesday.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Grove.
Yeah,
Appreciate
I think
that.
Thursdays are good.
Yeah, Thursdays
Okay.
work better for me. But okay.
My motion stands.
I need a
move
second.
to adjourn.
I need a second.
Motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thanks. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes. Commissioner Holland, we love you and send you good juju for all good things. Hopefully we see you soon with baby.
Sounds good.
And
Thanks,
another
Paul.
one.
Yeah, me and my halfling.
Exactly. Good luck. We wish you the best.
Okay.
Night, guys.